Here we go. Yes, this is going to be fun. We're going to have a fun show. Well, here we go. Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Well, clearly I don't have this camera set up. I'm your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, Robert Meyer Burnett. This is Midnight Musings, episode 12, 13. I forget. I don't think I changed the number. Maybe I did. It's one of those numbers. And it wouldn't be a show. As you can see, the new Robservatory is, everything is almost in place. I just have to alphabetize all the books. I'm slowly getting there. Lights are being hung. There's going to be an Enterprise behind me. It's going to be great. But it's not a show without my two cohorts, Mmmm and Lael Rockwell. He thinks I'm smooth, but he's the 1/6 scale man, and no one is smoother than the 1/6 scale man. Good to see both of you. First of all, let me ask you both, how was your week? How was it?
It was definitely too cold for June, in my opinion, but that's okay. We had a really torrential, rainy, and Lael, you have the same thing with these storms that have been coming through our area, and it should be like 80 degrees now, and I should be getting ready to go to the beach tomorrow, but I don't even think it's going to be warm enough. But it's okay. I can still enjoy the weekend despite the weather.
Yeah.
Lael, what was your week like?
It's been, it's okay. I mean, it's been a really, really, really a great week in the collecting universe. Outside of that, yeah, it's been work, and busy and, clients and dealing with that, stuff like that. But other than that, we made it to the weekend. Father's Day is on Sunday. So happy Father's Day to everybody. Also,
happy Father's Day to you. You've got kids.
Definitely. I mean, I'm excited about it. Happy Juneteenth to everybody as well. It's Juneteenth is on Sunday, so
which is now officially a national holiday.
National holiday, which basically because it is on a Sunday, it is reserved as a national holiday for people on Monday. So people get the day off on Monday if you don't already. I don't normally, but I just scheduled my day off on Monday. I'm not doing anything, but yeah. So it's exciting, man. I'm so glad to really celebrate this weekend and have a good time, 3-day weekend, and spend it with the family and everybody. So it's gonna be fun.
That's gonna be fun. I thought tonight, Lael, I've seen various posts of yours of late, and I kind of did I woke up this morning, and I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I made a decision.
Yeah.
I said I've decided I'm going to become a gatekeeper. I am going to be the final arbiter of what's good and bad, and I'm going to start telling people what they should and shouldn't watch, and I'm going to judge them. That's what I decided to do this morning. I woke up and I said, why not? You know how many times people throw that Simpsons meme at me, old man shouting at the clouds? So I figured, why not live up to that? So, to that effect, I mean, this is only going to last for a day, only a day.
Yeah.
But I just decided that today, I was going to officially be a gatekeeper, and I did my morning road tripping with Rob, Mike Bod, and I. We did and I told him, I said, Mike, I woke up this morning and I decided that I'm going to become a gatekeeper. So that was the podcast. And then when I went on the John Campea show this morning, sans John Campea, I told Chris, I said, you know what? I opened the show saying, I'm becoming a gatekeeper. I'm just going to do it because I'm tired of people telling me that I shouldn't be one. And I'm like, you know what? Nah, I should. I have the experience. I've got the tools. I got the talent. I have enough experience to say and enough knowledge that why shouldn't I be? I'm tired of people settling for mediocrity in the fan space. So, and then I went and tweeted. I tweeted on Twitter. I said, Strange New Worlds, the Star Trek show, is a show for people that don't read science fiction. That's what I said. Don't read. It's for the people that don't. So immediately I've triggered everybody that likes the show intentionally. And then I said, and I said, don't throw the old man yelling at cloud meme at me. Why don't you instead tell me what science fiction books you've read, and then I'll judge you. So I send this tweet out. And so that's how my morning began. And of course, exactly what I wanted to happen happened.
Spark controversy.
Oh yeah, it sparked controversy, and people actually either did one of two things. They answered with lists of books, which I thought was great. But then a few more people were like, every name in the book, every epithet, anything they could throw my way. And what was interesting is when I do something like this, it's people that after they see a retweet that somebody see, it's not people that follow me. It's people that see the initial tweet. They don't know who I am. They're like, who the fuck are you? Fuck you, blah, blah, blah. And it's really, and it's always people that I would consider to be pretty much on the left. People that should be, we should be simpatico with, but I don't know how left-wing I am anymore. But it was just, it was very interesting. And I'm watching this, and I kind of got to wondering, I'm like, okay, where fandom, when I was growing up, if you found a fellow fan, it was like finding a treasure. You found one of your tribe. You found somebody that it was like, man. And when you guys, that's why I went to conventions, because when I was growing up, I didn't have many friends that were into the same stuff that I was into.
Yeah.
So I couldn't, I couldn't be like, well, last night I spent like 4 hours looking over the blueprints of the Starship Enterprise. I couldn't tell somebody at school that. I'd get beat up or some shit like that. So I couldn't say it. I didn't have anyone to talk to. So now the world fandom has gone mainstream. Everybody is an MCU fan. Everybody is a Star Wars fan. And yet, like, we used to have great arguments and things with people. Nowadays, we all like the same stuff, but you can't have a critical conversation. You can't criticize anything, and even if it's constructive criticism. You can't come out and go, well, I felt this way about Kenobi, or I felt this way about Book of Boba Fett, or I felt this way about Moon Knight, or Miss Marvel, or whatever. Last week I talked about the fact that Cameron Pasha said that Miss Marvel had some of the most accurate representation of a Muslim Pakistani family he'd seen in any media anywhere. He followed that post up this week, and he said the same was true. He felt that he was his peeps were being well represented on the show. Of course, a lot of other people are like, that's terrible. It's in the girls. I mean, I think the show's delightful, quite frankly.
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's just delightful. And the thing is, I think it's successful at being what it wants to be. Like, it's set out to do this very specific thing, and I think it's succeeding admirably at doing that, which in my mind is a successful thing. So I'm going to throw the question out now that, okay, I was trolling and triggering fandom, and it's very funny because I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm trolling and triggering you, and people are like, oh, that's the defense. It's the old, it was just a joke defense. But those people didn't know that I'd already backed it up on a podcast and the opening of the John Campea show. So, and I couldn't explain it because they didn't know me anyway. Exactly. So I love getting things like rando old guy looking for his 15 minutes of fame. It was great. I mean, and I have to say the insults were pretty good. Some of them, I mean, people threw that meme at me. I'm like, ooh, that's original. But I was always like, tried to be respectful. I never name called back. I just, I did my whole, tried to bring people into the conversation by being funny. But my question to you guys is this. Why do you think that fandom has gotten to the point where we can't even constructively criticize the stuff we love without people taking it personally and making it, and then going after you personally, rather than talk about the thing that we're talking about, rather than pointing your fingers and your critical acumen at the show and talking about the show? If you do that and somebody doesn't like your comments, they then go after you personally, as if, and which I don't understand. I don't go after people. Like, I will criticize people's work. And by definition, if I haven't liked the writing in Star Trek, I criticize the writing and the writers for the fact that they plagiarize, because they do, they don't credit and Star Trek has been particularly egregious in this. Ever since Discovery happened, they have been liberally taking from all kinds of sources, and I think that's without attribution, and I think it's gross. It's not like they're just sampling a few lines from a song or a beat. They'll take whole character arcs and just, ooh, that sounds good. I'm going to take this and not even change the names or anything. But I want to ask you, why is it that fans can't talk to each other anymore? Where's the respect? What happened?
You go first.
This is a very good question, and it's a question that I think everybody is trying to figure out what the answer is. I think that if this was a situation where we knew that we were having a conversation with a friend that we knew well, we would have certain things to judge a conversation by, for example, visual cues, the tone of the voice.
Right.
If particular IP, you might not even ask them about that topic. And so now you find yourself on a platform where there's millions of people and you're making a comment about different IPs and you don't know what anyone loves or doesn't love, what might be a sensitive issue for them and isn't, and you know what they probably wouldn't even be normally talking about. Because think about how many times people have put in comments, and then when you ask them, have you watched this, they say, no, I haven't watched it. And so, you know, that alone tells you, I think what happens is that the community inspires them to participate even when they haven't watched it yet. And so, you know, I think it's very interesting, the need to do that, which is fine. I've done it. I said, I haven't watched it, but it looks good. But inevitably, what's happening is that people are participating. And once they read a comment, their judgment of the comment is directed at the individual versus what the comment is about. Mm-hmm. So, you know, criticism of an IP isn't criticism, you know, necessarily of an individual. You know, if I say that I wasn't happy the way Star Wars handled this, it doesn't mean that I'm upset with anybody who works at Star Wars. You know, I'm not necessarily focusing on the executive branch of Lucasfilm. I'm not. I'm talking about, you know, I felt the script should be stronger or go in a different direction, or I would have liked to have seen something else. And the other part and the other element that plays into all this is just the idea that, you know, the three of us, we're not going to agree on everything. And Lael, this is what I was talking to you about last night.
Yeah.
You know, we're not?
We're not going to agree on everything. And also, I already know individually that there are going to be things that aren't my favorite, things that I don't like. And I make a conscious decision all the time that, you know, I'm like, let me hear what this person has to say. It's like, I know that they're going to have a different view, but let me just listen. And I just listen to it. And, you know, a lot of times I'm like, well, I don't agree with that inside. And I don't necessarily feel like I even have to voice that, because unless I have something constructive to say about it, unless I have a rebuttal, if I don't have a rebuttal, I'm just versus, well, that was very hurtful. It's like, no, it may have been hurtful, but it's pointless for me to even put out an emotional response to it sometimes, because I need to listen to this stuff. This is why I'm on this platform, is to listen to everybody's views. So, you know, I'm accustomed to hearing different views and these different things. And then I started to realize that, you know, this platform isn't just about, yes, it's true that the three of us have a specific aesthetic in entertainment, and we describe what we think is what excels and what doesn't excel. But there is also an element of this platform. Absolutely, this may be the only place that anybody ever even hears what they have to say. And, you know, it's not selective, so it's across the board, and it could be anybody going through anything at that time, no matter what. And I don't think that they're unaware of that. It's deliberate. They know that there are repercussions for certain things. And, you know, a lot of us bear the brunt of it. And it's like, this is uncomfortable. And then now we have to deal with it, right? But, you know, I almost wonder if it's a form of therapy for a lot of people who will go on and kind of express themselves and have this frustration that's built inside. And it has absolutely nothing to do with your comment. Yeah. They were already upset before they read that comment. Yeah. They were already upset when they logged onto the platform. And it is kind of very interesting in a sense, because it's something that if you were at work, it probably wouldn't be tolerated. Right. You know, if you were in a more controlled environment, it wouldn't be tolerated. But this is kind of an open forum where we're open to a lot of this. And, you know, essentially it's like it's a group, I think it's called group therapy or something therapy, purpose therapy or detail therapy. Yeah. And I thought about that and I said, Robert, there was no 20 years ago. Now, and, you know, it means that to a lot of people, but there also is a responsibility of having respect for others. And sometimes that just isn't met for various reasons. Even just the way people write, you know, like we're judging people by these short sentences, right? You know, this isn't an essay. We're not judging them by an essay or an editorial. You know, you have a certain number of characters to get your point across. It's a challenge to put all that emotion in something that might take longer. Like, for example, when people submit letters to you, Robert, they have an opportunity to really express themselves in more of a cohesive manner than just typing, yeah, Rob, I didn't agree with that. It was garbage. You know, like, you can't go to the limit of what you would like to respond. And so, you know, there's that limitation of that as well. So when you combine all those factors, we end up with situations like this. You know, sometimes someone can say they don't like something, and you'll look at that and you want to know why, but they didn't put in why they didn't like it.
Right.
Now, you know, you're like, I can't get back to ask them why. It's very in how it does spur conversation, but the majority of the conversation is meant for sharing and reading, and perhaps not to necessarily be taken any further.
Well, Lael, you know, I want to ask you, obviously, being that it's Juneteenth and Father's Day this weekend, I mean, there's been a lot of talk, especially, I think there's been a backlash in fan circles about representation. And, what I find sort of interesting to me is, I mean, clearly in our culture in the United States, there are groups, they are, let's call them minorities, because we're still a predominantly white nation with a white history. And now, you know, we have obviously I would imagine you know something about Black America, Lael. And then we have the Latino community. We have the Asian community. When I grew up in Seattle, we had a large Asian community, and we shared a lawn with a Japanese family, and then down the street we had a Chinese family. I never even considered anybody of Asian descent a minority. That, you know, because I grew up with them, it never occurred to me to do that. And Seattle's pretty chill that way. It's gotten less chill, but it was pretty chill growing up. And now we have a world where all kinds of people are getting represented in ways they didn't before. You know, I mean, and while, I grew up watching blaxploitation movies like Coffee and Shaft and Black Caesar and Slaughter and Slaughter Goes to Africa. I love those movies. I love Jim Brown. I love Richard Roundtree. I love those guys. But even those movies were pigeonholed into a certain milieu that a lot of people didn't appreciate, because it was, you know, criminals and Pimps Up, Hose Down, that old HBO series and all that, which I understand that. But now we live in a world where all of the people that didn't have a voice before, whether it's a racial voice, whether it's LGBTQ, whatever your marginalized group is, you have a voice now. And people are being able to tell their stories. And from my perspective, what's so great about that is I get to hear stories I haven't heard before. I get to hear people who never were able to tell their stories have a venue to tell stories. And for someone like myself, who is a story connoisseur, I think that's great. You know, and yet on the other hand, you know, I think in some ways there has been a concerted effort to insert repretation everywhere, for better or for worse. And a lot of people are responding negatively against that. So I would ask, you know, what is fandom's responsibility? You know, when we have movies like Moonlight, which is a terrific film winning Best Picture, and Parasite, a Korean film winning Best Picture. I mean, these kinds of things were unprecedented 10 years ago. Yeah. And yet we're seeing that. But now let me ask you, what do you think, how important is representation, and how important is the acknowledgement of that representation within fandom?
So, we know that there's been years of, you know, us, you know, and not even just, when I say us, you know, it's not even, you know, just, you know, the Black community. It's the Latino community. It's the Native community. It's the, you know, any indigenous community, you know, that, you know, is basically fighting for space. The thing is, we, in a sense, over the years have been marginalized. And you know, I want to say that, placed in a box, placed in a situation, whereas you're only good for certain things or certain roles. Your portrayal is that portrayal because it's already been stereotyped who you are, and these are the movies where you should be represented. So anytime you step outside of that box, then you'll have individuals who say, no, you don't belong in this space. you are better suited for that space, for this particular space, because it's the most representative of who you are. You know, and now that we're seeing that there's a shift where representation has become more of the standard. Representation is more so the conversations that we're constantly having. Now with that representation becomes a label, that if there's too much of something or too much of certain individuals, then that property is labeled woke, too woke.
Right.
Okay. So that's the label. Instead of a person's talent, instead of basically how much they bring to the table and how much of a broader discussion would be, it's labeled, because there's a level of there's a lack of acceptance, because you have one demographic that may feel as though they're being forced. You know what I mean? That they're being forced. This isn't on them anymore. Whether it's a strong woman being placed in a position to, whereas you might have a white male who feels as though, well, no, this is a position that I should actually occupy. I've been occupied this long, and you come along and now there's no space for me. And when that happens, then there's pushback, and they find ways of doing that by devaluing. It's gotten to the point where race has been challenged. When we talk about wars, we talk about this character Reva. No matter how she's been written, and mind you, I want to say that she's not a director, she's not a writer, she's an actress. That role was written by someone else, and it was directed by Deborah Chow. She's only doing exactly what she's supposed to do based off of the direction that was given, text that was actually delivered to her. So now a lot of people, based off of the simple fact, now this is how it started with rumors or a leak of an ending. And because this character was given so much of a space to breathe a bit, then it was like, okay, it's too much of that person, not enough of other individuals. So when that was showcased, then this person was under attack. So this character was written off well before the show was started.
Yep.
Okay. And that right there was, okay, cool. No matter how bad you may think the show is, or some people like it, some people are divisive. It's a very divisive show at this point. But that divisiveness it's like, Moses Ingram has had to shelter the weight of everything scrutinized about this show. I think it's fair. Do I think this is a perfect show? Not by any means, no. I think that there are things in this show that need to be reevaluated, and they should have thought about this a bit more. And I think a lot of that has to do with the simple fact that how short each episode is, and it hasn't really given a space to breathe. But I don't think that one particular actress should shelter. I even saw today that even the character that's playing young, now they have to go to bat for her because she's been under attack. A young little girl. And I'm like, wow, like this culture. Oh, seriously, they just don't care. Now we have, and I think here's the thing. The problem with social media is the simple fact that we see these words written, but we don't know the
Oh no, I somehow you've disappeared.
Oh, here we go.
Are we still here? Okay.
Yeah, we're still here. So yeah, like the person probably didn't mean it the way it was written, but we're looking at keystrokes, not knowing the emotions or the tone of that person, because we're going off of what was written. And this is how social media is right now. It's a simple fact. They mask that around what they don't like about. So there have been, and again, Moses Ingram showed that. She actually put it on display so everybody can see it. There have been racist remarks about this individual, and they hide that and they try to mask it around her performance. That to me is wrong. We have so many different shows and other IPs that ethnic characters have experienced the same thing. Now we have Miss Marvel, where people are like, wait a minute, now you're saturating a show with too much religion. You're just taking the religious tones and the Islamic tones and smothering a show because you're trying to make a point. It's like, no, this is a person's culture. And if you don't read the comics, if you've never read the comics, they are following the comics beat by beat because her story is the same way in the comics. They might have actually changed certain things in this show just because it has to be changed based on the content, based on the simple fact that we only have a short amount of time to view these shows on Disney Plus. They had to change certain things, small things, but it doesn't change the narrative. The narrative is exactly the same. The tone is exactly the same in the books. But because it's certain individuals may not like it or they push back against certain things, it's under attack because it's not what they think it should be. And that
I don't mean to interrupt. Hold that
yeah.
thought. I'm gonna just jump out, let you continue because I'm gonna go flip a switch so I can get the connection better.
Okay,
so
cool.
So you keep going, and I'll be right back.
But so the problem to me is the simple fact that we can have a conversation about the things that we don't like, and we should, and there should be a difference of opinion because if everybody agreed, then there's no evolution. There's nothing to evolve. We can't evolve because we're complacent if we all agree. Like literally it is because there's nothing to really grow on, without hearing things and how we can improve. But the problem is when those racial undertones get involved, that's when it's a huge mistake. And that's when it gets out of hand and we hear a lot of hatred. And then, like I said, especially with Star Wars is dangerous territory. Like literally dangerous territory. It's not a conversation that we can have anymore. We can't really talk about it anymore because the minute you mention Star Wars, it's like, yo, literally, it's like somebody in your family is about to die. Like literally, the moment you mention it, it just becomes something totally different. That's why I'm like, I'm so reluctant now to really talk. It's like I feel like I did when I was in high school, that I can't have those conversations about something that I love without it. I say something and then you look in the chat and then everybody going at each other. And it's like, well, no, that's not deep to me, if it makes sense. Like, I just don't know. What do you feel about it?
I think it's something to think about. And I think that if we're using these social media comments, which were only meant, excuse me, for a quick comment, but it's into something longer and something with many more words, it's very difficult to even have a constructive comment to that letter because once you send it, it's gone. It's going to be hard to amend it sometimes. Yeah. And you can't really take it back. So, there's so many ways to interpret a lot of the comments because it's not really a long-term kind of way to communicate. So I think once you realize that it's just meant for a short, response and you keep it to that way, then it doesn't necessarily need to go in directions where it was never intended to go into in the first place.
Sorry, I think I fixed our connection, by the way. I think it'll be
awesome.
Better. I just want to say this is very funny. Manowar666, neighbor of the beast, says he's been a PGS Hero member for 13 months. Bullies? Oh, you mean like 1/6 scale collectors?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. I mean, the thing is, to really, I mean, I just want to address something, and I try not to at some, but
do it.
To say that I'm rewriting history, I think that's, I think when you say a person's rewriting history, and that, things were blown out of proportion about, Moses Ingram, I don't think you're doing enough research to really understand how bad this person has been abused. And to say she's blown out of proportion, the proof is in the pudding. And I'll just stick to that. I mean, because, I think it, again, bro, like the danger of social media right now is that people try to silence you. And the thing is, I'd rather me, myself, and I say this all the time, if I have to be a martyr for a good cause, then I'll be that. And I'm not going to silence myself for anybody. I'm going to say what I want to say. And I'm going to speak out when I see things that are really a phallus and kind of wrong. And especially when you really are bullying individuals. That right there to me is really false. I try my best to kind of be fair. And the thing is, we need, all of us, everybody needs to have, there needs to be a level of fairness. But it's just like so much other things are going on in this world. To have a platform, a place where we try to escape the nonsense, this is when it kind of gets really dangerous. And the thing is, I have a thick enough skin to know that, you know, I'm not going to be like everyone. I know that. And I'm not naive that racism exists and is not going anywhere anytime soon. People want to be naive and say that it doesn't exist, but it does. I wish that history could be rewritten about that and that it never existed, but unfortunately it does. And there are undertones in what people basically say, especially about actors of ethnic proportion and background. So to basically say that history is rewritten or I'm rewriting history and that, you know, keep it real, this, that, and I think you need to keep it real and realize that these things really do exist and that they're out there and that they need to be addressed and that this actress has been bullied. This actress has been charged and things that are completely out of her hands. So I'm just going to leave it there and not really say too much more about that. Well, but I'm just saying, like, again, when I knew that having this discussion right now would really spark a lot of conversations in the chat and it would bring out it. So put it this way, people really expose who they really are. They really expose who they really are when we have such conversations like this. You know what I mean? On any platform, they expose who they really, really are. And we see that. You know, well, you know, so it's just dangerous. It's dangerous.
For me, like my criticism of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series overall is that Obi-Wan Kenobi is not a proactive character. Yeah. He has been reacting. And I don't, my biggest overall criticism of the show is that, you know, like I'll give you an example. The latest episode, episode 5, when they have this flashback, this duel that they've woven through the entire show of Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting, and at the end, you know, Obi-Wan basically says to him, "Yeah, you're always going for the kill shot." But when I'm watching this, I'm like, we already know this. Like, this was in Clone Wars, it was in Revenge of the Sith, and I felt like they have this one flashback sequence. And they're already telling us things that we know, and I felt like we didn't get enough insight into, like, it would be really interesting that, you know, in Star Wars when Vader and Kenobi meet, when I left you I was but the learner, now I am the master, and Kenobi says only a master of evil. Well, forget canon or whatever, they are clearly canon. We just assumed that they had never met before because of that conversation. Now Obi-Wan Kenobi is telling us something different, which I don't have a problem with. My problem is that here are guys where their positions in life, even though Anakin is you know more machine now than man, been out in the desert in a cave for 10 years, and everything Kenobi believed in was destroyed. You know, the Jedi were destroyed. They were shown to be basically chumps. They didn't even know that the Sith Lord had come in the midst of them. You know, it was the only reason they knew is because Anakin told him that. And, you know, it was funny. I was watching Revenge of the Sith the other day, and I'm like, it's unclear if Anakin goes and says, I think Palpatine is a Sith Lord. He's doing that on purpose to set the Jedi up. He's saying, yeah, you dicks, go to Palpatine's office. I'm telling you, he's a Sith Lord. But he knows that he's going to smoke them when they get there, you know, and it's interesting. It would have been interesting to make this series about the juxtaposition of Vader and Kenobi. I would have liked to have seen them on, that the show is about them. Like, what does Vader do when he's not sitting? Like, we see him when we meet him, he's sitting on a throne on Mustafar. What's he doing? He's not at work. You know, he's not out policing the galaxy for the Empire. What's he doing at his castle? Is he meditating? And I feel that was a missed opportunity. It would have been really interesting that when we meet Vader, we see him in the middle of subjugating a planet. Like he's gone there. He doesn't have a super Star Destroyer yet, but he goes there with his garrison of troops, and he has to put down some like rebellion. And when we meet him, Kenobi's working at a meat packing plant on Tatooine, barely eking out a living in the shithole, the ass end of the world. And Vader's at the top of his game. He's going down on planets with his troops, pacifying planets for the Empire. And it would have been really interesting to see the juxtaposition of these two guys. And they're on a collision course to clash. And I never want to review things by saying it's not what I wanted, but it just seems to me that the show that we're getting, Reva's story is interesting enough unto herself that they should have made an Inquisitor show about her.
Yeah.
Starting out as a youngling, and then she's been working for however long. I mean, how does she reconcile the fact that she was in the Jedi Temple when the Jedi were getting slaughtered, and now she cuts off innocent women's arms or hands and kills people and does all this stuff just to get her revenge against Vader or whatever it is that she wants? I mean, that's a really interesting thing. How does somebody like her work their way up the ranks of the Inquisitors when her desire is to kill Vader? That's a great story. And that's her story. That's enough of a story that should have been its own series.
It should have been its own separate. And I get that. And I think go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to see was something that we heard a lot about Vader, or at least we know happens in Vader's life while he's serving Palpatine, and it's the fact that he's sent on these missions that are extremely dangerous and incredibly difficult to get out of. It's almost impossible situations. And, he manages to get out by the skin of his teeth every time. Apparently the goat gets set up by Palps a lot, to go on these dangerous assignments. And, he manages to get out of, nearly being killed all the time. And I would have loved to have seen something like that, because that's his reality. He doesn't have a smooth, comfortable life. Vader doesn't have a smooth, comfortable life. He's not
smooth like me.
Exactly. He's in his, machine-like suit, and he's constantly being poked and prodded by Palps. So, there's that reality for him. And if we had seen a circumstance where Vader in that situation, and he happens to come across Obi at a time when he is vulnerable, or at a time, where he's vulnerable, and let's say or another Inquisitor sees them there, what would they do when they knew that they had Vader at a vulnerable moment versus, when he's at full power, when he's like, I can kick your ass, don't even bother trying to fight me because I'm going to beat you. So I thought it would have been more interesting, a situation where, Vader is on some kind of mission and then their paths cross, or then we see a fight, because we've seen him when he's strong. And so it would be great to see a situation where he's, been knocked down and is holding on for his life. He can handle it, but it's tough. And we would see something, kind of like where he finds himself in a bad way. And how would the characters deal with that? Because that seems to me to be more of a tension point for Vader, at least, because he seems perfectly fine in this series. He's kind of hunting Obi down, but he's okay. He's very comfortable, and that's just not his reality. Second thing is, in regards to Obi-Wan, I did want to see him make more connections with people, and he's hustling. He's hustling through this whole thing. I would have liked to have seen a more intimate story about him. So I just to be honest with you, I thought that we were going to see something like that, but they chose to, have other characters in there, and it is great to see the other characters. But I would have liked if it more focused on Obi-Wan. And honestly, if it was just Obi-Wan and a few other people, I would have been fine if he never left the planet. If it was, some kind of intimate soul-searching thing with Qui-Gon, which everybody seems to want to see, I would have been fine with that. We would have learned more about the Force. We could have learned more about different things. Qui-Gon could have explained things to him. This could have been like a Force-heavy, meditation style series, and people would have been like, wow, I was not expecting to go to this level.
Yeah.
This level of how does he actually finally learn how to become a Force ghost? It's not going to be solved in one episode, is it?
No.
It would be something that would be a journey.
I think you're right. I think, one of the, look, I love Star Wars. I've loved Star Wars since I saw it for the opening weekend in 1977. I saw Like I've told everybody a million times, I saw Empire Strikes Back 26 times in the theater. I have a Millennium Falcon cockpit for my 6-scale figures right in front of me. You can't see it, but it's right there, precariously balanced on a bunch of other Hot Toys boxes, which it probably shouldn't be. But I love Star Wars, but I do feel that since Disney has taken it over, I mean, Disney has a corporate agenda. They have to tell a certain kind of story, because they're not just telling the story; they're telling, they're advancing material so they can build theme parks around it, or merchandise around it, or do all of these things. The actual fealty to great storytelling isn't necessarily there. Like when they're talking about, okay, we want these elements in the story. Okay, and we'll go hire somebody who can do that. And that's the actual reverse, as we've talked about a million times on the show, of great storytelling. Corporations, by definition, can't tell a good story because and so what I would, and I understand how they're protecting their brand, but I do feel like, like the thing about, I always tell people, like, you want to go back and see what great Star Wars is, go watch Star Wars. Look at the original. Not A New Hope, the original 77 version, which I can burn you guys copies on Blu-ray if you want. I have copies of the original Star Wars, and the original Star Wars, peak verisimilitude, changed everyone's lives. There was no CGI in it. So my problem with the special editions is when you get to the additional sequences, they're totally incongruous because CGI didn't exist at the time. So when you're watching Star Wars and then you get to the scene with like Jabba the Hutt, there's a CG Jabba. It's like it doesn't work because the whole aesthetic is thrown off. And Mos Eisley used to be this like East Texas shithole, and now it's this sprawling metropolis. It's like Tatooine was what used to be. If there's a bright center of the universe, you're on the planet that it's furthest from, unless of course you're a pod racer, in which case Tatooine's important. The Hutts put on the Boonta Eve pod race. Everybody goes to Mos Espa to see the Boonta Eve pod race. I mean, come on. Ben Quadneros, I mean, everybody's there. They party. It's like the Indy 500. Which is all so weird. Like and I know that was a prequel thing and that was a George thing, and that's fine. But I do think that that the stories that we're getting are not as good as they should be. And I find that fascinating. I mean, they're fine. We love Star Wars. So we're predisposed to liking things. But like on television, for instance, Boba Fett being a criminal, bounty hunter, whatever. To me, if you're going to do a great story like that, you don't look to Star Wars. You look to something else. Like, what is your favorite crime thriller? Pick any crime, whether it's Scarface, whether it's The Godfather, whether it's Goodfellas, King of New York, whatever your favorite crime thriller is. Look to that movie. Look to the ascendancy of American Gangster. Denzel Washington in American Gangster, how he ended up running the heroin trade at the time. How did that happen? And eventually he gets busted. Looked at that story, and if you want to see Boba Fett ascendant and building a criminal empire, look at Ridley Scott's American Gangster starring Denzel Washington. Go copy that movie, but set it in the Star Wars universe. And I feel like we got this Boba Fett story that wasn't really a Boba Fett story. And, you're watching it going, well, wait a minute. I mean, okay, this dude's a bounty hunter. His father was Jango Fett. He followed in his father's footsteps to the point where he's wearing his armor repainted and he's flying in his ship. It's the family business. And yet when you watch the Book of Boba Fett, you don't get any inkling that that's the same dude that was even in Mandalorian. When he shows up Mandalorian, Boba Fett kicks ass. He smokes dudes. He's smashing them with his gaffy stick and he just lays people out. And I like that guy. When did he decide to take over the criminal underworld of Tatooine? Even to take over the Hutt's empire. Like, why? Why would you do that? I still don't know.
And you can see the discontiguous characters in the writing. It's all different, not the same team and on the same page.
So one of the challenges, or one of the biggest things that I look at when we look at these Disney Plus shows, I mean, yes, it might have been successful with Mando because Mando was pretty much the flagship for all the other shows, and it's pretty much the primary show. The writing has been well. There have been some episodes that we can tell and pick out and say they're fillers. But I think that, the importance of really telling a good story is it, of course, is character development, but also it's the mystique of that character. The mystery surrounding the build up to it has to be something that really brings us in to that character's world without them saying too much, without them basically giving away too much. And the problem is that when I'm looking at, all right, for instance, number one, Obi-Wan and a lot of these other shows, you can't tell a decent story in 33 minutes or 30 minutes or 35 minutes or 40. You can't do that. I mean, I'm sorry. A 6-episode run is rushed. They have to change that format because it makes zero sense. Like, it really, especially in the Star Wars universe, it might be good for an animated show, but not for a live action television show because you're not getting the full effect, especially if you're invested in certain characters. To me, yes. When I look at this show, I'm like, yes, it needs to be basically about Vader and Obi-Wan. And if you bring other characters in, I think that Reva's character, as important as she is and as interesting as she is, for me, it would have been much if she didn't have, and I say this in a serious way, if she didn't have the amount of exposure and had less words. Boba in both Boba Fett in Empire, Boba Fett in Jedi, even though we've seen what happened in Jedi, but Boba Fett had very little words, but he created mystery behind his actions. Whereas you wanted to know more about that particular character. He was sent out based off of orders. If we did the given orders, the Grand Inquisitor, of course, had. But if we actually saw her carrying out her missions, but in the privacy of her own space, we saw flashbacks and we saw struggle, but less words. I mean, the reason why I say that, because then it just draws you when you know more about that particular character, more about what they've been through, and then save that for a space where it could be told. I think that what they did was they threw her in this way, and they might as well say that Disney right now is like they threw character to the wolves. Because you knew the character was you knew what this show was supposed to be about, which was Obi-Wan and Vader. But any other character is just a supporting character, but that shouldn't have as much as the main character should have. But I know you want to push a narrative, but at the same time, I respect the simple fact that she is trying to hold her own, given the material she's been given. But I'm more interested in the character because I just don't think that there's enough mystery behind her at all. We know her motives. We know who she is. We were given that blueprint in the very beginning when we saw that. And the thing is, when they showed that first episode, right, and we saw the younglings and we saw the slaughter at the Jedi Temple, and we basically saw her say, we got to get out. We need to run. You immediately, by the end of that episode, you associated that character as being a youngling. You knew it. I knew it right off the bat when I saw the first episode. I was like, she was a youngling. She was that youngling that we actually saw. I don't think that we should have known. To me, as badass as that scene was, we shouldn't probably have seen that scene until episode 4 or 5, because then we can make the connective tissue and be like, oh, now I see the motivation and where she's at, and now the character struggle. So then you basically set that character up for her own separate show because you've created the interest around that character instead of just throwing it out there in the very beginning and making her the primary focus over everything else. Because to be quite honest, in episode 4, there was way too much dialogue between her and Leia on what was actually going on between Obi-Wan and what we should have got of Vader. And the thing is, and I don't say that in a bad, I'm not saying for me it's a missed opportunity. And still even started. You know what I mean? Give her that mystery. Give her the mystery that we want to see. Because the thing is, with most of the Inquisitors, like, especially if you played, if anybody who's actually played Jedi Fallen Order, that was one of the best representations of an Inquisitor that I have ever seen. That's it was the second sister, I believe. She was badass, bro. I love that character. In the show itself is lackluster because, again, number one, it's 33 minutes of an episode, or 30 or 40 minutes of an, like you said, the last episode might be like maybe 40 or 50 minutes. I don't even think that's long enough, because we still didn't enough for them of where we need to go with this particular story, in my opinion. But if you created the mystery around these characters, then it would draw interest to that character instead of giving her way too many lines and exposing her narrative in the very beginning. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
Robert,
well, listen, I want to. There's some super chats.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The super chats.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff jumping around. So Tom Jr. Jackson says, Lael, you're making some great points tonight. Rob Broad knocking it out of the park tonight. Well, thank you. And looking lovely as always. Well, there you go. Thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson. And Checkers the Inventor says, upgraded his membership to PGS VIP. For those of you who are members of the channel, we are having a member call tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
Nice.
So there you go. We'll see you then. Bloodsport 1 says, Lael is correct. Some people are masking Moses Ingram's performance, the bad writing behind their racism. In my opinion, when it comes to black actors in sci-fi genre, they're given bad scripts.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. You know, there's a great black actor they've added to the cast of For All Mankind, and man, that show's always had great representation, and it continues to do so. So that is great. If you haven't watched For All Mankind, get on that now. RRTNZ said, all of the suggestions you've made so far have been better than the Obi-Wan show, which is full of logic and canon fails, staggering writing incompetence. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's a bizarre thing, and the writer, one of the writers who's been interviewed, has actually talked about his ignorance of some Star Wars, which is never a good thing. Don't do that. Checkers the Inventor says, Lucas always describes Star Wars as a soap opera. It is necessarily a problem that saving Leia is the motivation for Obi-Wan. After all, that this is part of the Skywalker saga. It is. I mean, look, I love the actress that's playing young Leia. She's great. But, you know, he had to rescue her twice in 6 episodes. And it's kind of a weird. And again, why Leia? Why not have Bail Organa be the one that needs to be rescued? You know, and something like that could have been interesting. Like that they went and got him because they knew he was friends with Obi-Wan. You know, that could have been, but you know, whatever. I mean, again, that's not the show we're getting. Fat Steven Seagal is here and says, Bubba of Arabia, not Boba Fett in the slightest. Well, it's weird. I mean, yeah, that was a weird thing. Wesley Namella says, welcome to the Post-Geek Singularity. You're a hero. Wesley goes on to say, hello, Rob. I'm glad you're back and doing great. The man, the myth, and the legend. Rob, how do we get Star Trek back in the future? Rob, I agree with Star Trek in the past. Let's go boldly beyond where no man has gone before. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, look, here's what I don't understand. Star Wars and Star Trek are both kind of stuck rehashing their universe, which is weird because Discovery was a prequel. Strange New Worlds is a prequel. Picard is a sequel. And that was not what Star Trek was doing in the Berman-Roddenberry era, where it was moving forward and adding Next Generation, brand new cast. Deep Space Nine, brand new cast, brought over some cast members from Next Generation. Then Voyager, brand new cast. Enterprise, brand new cast. And I feel like a lot of these shows are sort of treading water. I mean, Taika Waititi comes out and says, great, I'm going to do a Star Wars movie that has nothing to do with the Skywalker saga with new characters. And I'm like, great, I think it's great because we all love the Star Wars universe. Let's explore the Star Wars universe. Now, this is interesting. This is sort of a change of pace. Joseph Michael sent in 3 very generous super chats about, he wants to talk about another fan base, Lightyear. He says, welp, Lightyear doesn't seem to be doing so well on its opening weekend. Analysts are expecting around 70 million for the weekend. Today it's made between 15 to 23 million, depending on what you read. It looks like Solo all over again. Is Pixar's theatrical future as good as dead? I'm sorry if this seems like a diversion from what you are discussing tonight, but I thought it should be brought up since it was on my mind and causing me great distress. By the way, has Rob been able to finally see Lightyear in its entirety? I know you saw the first 30 minutes. Are you worried about how its potential underperformance could jeopardize future Pixar theatrical releases? Well, let me weigh in on this. I mean, I'm a huge Pixar fan. You know, I have been since 95. And I only saw the first half an hour of Lightyear because that's all they showed us at CinemaCon. I haven't gone to see it again yet. But what's interesting to me, everybody who was in that CinemaCon audience loved it. We all cried, and it was totally emotional. And what's really interesting, the movie starts, and over a black card, it says, you know, in 1995, you met Andy, and one of his favorite toys was Buzz Lightyear. This is the movie that toy was from. And I'm like, well, that's a really cool premise. Like, how cool is that? That Lightyear is the movie that Andy was a fan of, and that the Buzz Lightyear toy that's voiced by Tim Allen, that's a toy. That's not even the real Buzz Lightyear. It'd be like if we collected Star Wars action figures, which we do, and if somebody made a movie about our relationship with our Hot Toys, Lael, our friendship and our Hot Toys and all that, and then you went and saw Star Wars, and then people would complain that Star Wars was not in the movie universe of Lael and Rob's friendship and their toys. That's kind of what Lightyear is. Lightyear has nothing to do with the Toy Story movie or the dynamic between the toys, and yet everybody is trying to make it as such, where I think Lightyear is a great standalone science fiction adventure that Pixar made. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's got great characterization. It's got great representation. It has one of the best representations of an LGBTQ relationship I've ever seen on film, and it made me cry. And it's fantastic. And yet, when I read the critics, and I've read a lot of film fans that I respect, they're like looking for the connection to Toy Story itself, or that this seems like a direct-to-video spinoff. And I'm like, how? What? Like, I think what they've done with Lightyear is really cool, and it's very clever. It's never been done before, and yet fandom, I'm reading a lot of fan pundits rejecting it, saying this isn't really part of this Toy Story franchise, but it's not supposed to be.
No, it's not supposed to be.
And I wonder, like, I was delighted by, at least, again, I haven't seen the rest of the movie because that's all what they showed us, but I haven't cried in the first 25 minutes of a movie in a long time, and Lightyear literally made me cry. And I just wonder, are our own expectations, even when a movie is great, getting in the way of our ability to discern what's good or bad?
Well, I kind of talked about this yesterday. We talked about this on Civilized Scoundrels a bit, and I think that again, and I'll say it, it's like there's a level of attachment. You know, we become attached to certain IPs to the point that we want it within that. We want what we want. We want to see what we want to see. We want to see what we want to see, but we also crave evolution. We want things to evolve. We want other stories told. We want to see things different, but when we see those things that are different, then we kind of retreat back into what's comfortable, which kind of shrinks the world. And they basically said with this film, like, we don't, it has nothing to do with, it's inspired by the Toy Story. You want to know about this character? Well, this is what this character was inspired from, Toy Story. But it wasn't saying that this is a direct sequel of Toy Story or Toy Story, whatever. Or, you know what I mean? They're not saying that this is a direct sequel or no, they're just talking about the character from the movie, telling a totally different story, which is, I thought that this is what we were supposed to. And I don't know, there's always pushback when we see things evolve, if they take a totally different direction, a more creative direction, which is something that we want to see. Like, what if, like, say for instance, they say, okay, we're going to tell a Woody story. We're going to tell you where this toy came from. And they actually do that particular character. Like, I mean, it's still inspired by the film. It's just, I mean, from the original IP, but it's just you're taking a different direction, telling a story about the character from its fictional standpoint. From, that character or the kid who bought that toy, they're looking at the fictional version of this particular character, making up their own stories about this character. But we get a chance to see the real story of where that character that came from. You know what I mean? So, but at the same time, it's like, we want things like that, but when it doesn't fit the narrative that we create in our own heads, then there's pushback. So I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It's literally like, it is tough. Like it is so tough right now. Like to really, and this is coming from a person who, I've watched Toy Story when I was little. I wasn't as much a fan as everybody else is, but I've watched it. I've seen it, but I'm not like a diehard fan. But I mean, with any IP, you want to see things evolve, and you want to have that space where, okay, other stories can be told, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Marvel, Whether, you want other stories to be told. That's just like right now in Marvel. You know what I mean? We're getting other characters. We're seeing, evolution with other characters. But I still hear the same conversation. Yo, I want Cat back. I want Iron Man back. If they were in this movie, it would be so much better. Yeah. Why do you feel that way? Like literally, I can't. Or the story now is okay. Yeah. Steve Rogers. We're gonna get Steve Rogers back. We need to have Steve Rogers back. Why? Because you don't think Sam Wilson can carry the torch, or is it that woke conversation that we're having? Well, you just don't want to see that. So I don't know. It's just like, we want to see things evolve, but I think we kind of compromise ourselves with these ideas. Like I don't know. It's strange, and I could be wrong. It's just my opinion. That's all I'm saying.
But I think to me, like one of the things I really loved about Falcon and Winter Soldier was the conversation Sam was having with our former soldier. And he says, as a black man who was victimized by the United States government, experimented on, he's like, they're never going to let you be Captain America. And Sam Wilson's like, maybe, but I have to try. And I'm like, that's a hero. Sam Wilson as Captain America, that's a hero. I love that. I love that about Captain America or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and becomes Captain America and the Winter Soldier, whatever. I love that story because Steve Rogers is great, but so we can watch him be Captain America again. We've seen him be Captain America again, over and over. Sam Wilson's story is fascinating to me.
Yeah,
and I don't like, as much as I like that stuff. We have more Marvel movies than most other franchises combined. I mean, there are very few franchises. Doctor Strange is almost going to make $1 billion, and the Multiverse of Madness. We're at $950 million right now. Very close to $1 billion. It's a huge hit. The narrative, no, it's a huge hit for Marvel. Well, it didn't make Spider-Man No Way Home numbers. Yeah, but very few movies do. It's already like the 45th highest grossing movie of all time or something. It did great. And it's a standalone movie, and it's doing great. And this weird narrative about what people think is successful and what is not is strange. By the way, our friends over at Echo Base Network, Nick and the Coach, Nick says, I just got done taking Coach through season 1, episode 1 of Deep Space Nine, or season 1 of Deep Space Nine, episode 19, Duet, the penultimate episode of the first season. It was above and beyond anything Disney's put out for Star Wars. The acting, the story, etc., was top notch. With all the money Disney has, Star Wars should be on this level. Well, first of all, Echo Base, Duet is the best episode of the first season. It's an incredible hour of TV, and it's basically two people in a room talking, for the most part. It's incredible. Look, I agree with you. I think that the problem with the writing on these Star Wars shows, it's not Kathleen Kennedy. It's the fact that Disney has a corporate agenda that they need to fulfill. Every one of these shows, like, why Young Princess Leia? Well, look at Disney movies. Look at movies like Brave or Mulan, or there's a whole strata of Disney animated classics that have young princesses, young heroines. Somebody probably said, well, we have to have young Princess Leia as a character. That's a so Disney call, and I'm sure Kathleen Kennedy is fulfilling what her corporate overlords want, and that's how those things happen. They don't have somebody. There are no autonomous creators that are just handed the keys to Star Wars, not even Favreau and Filoni, because they can't be. They're successful. They've carved out their own niche, but why aren't Favreau and Filoni working on Kenobi? I mean, that was out. Why did they not work on Andor? Although I think Andor is going to be the show that everybody's going to be blown away by. But I mean, it's different. Now the question is, back to the idea of fandom. What is our responsibility? I mean, to fandom itself, to one another. By the way, our friend Six Scale Mafia is here, and he just became a hero, a member. And Weeva Goldberg says Weeva Goldberg was the real star of Obi-Wan. Weeva, I don't know. I don't know what that means. I'm missing out on Weeva Goldberg, but that's pretty funny. Wesley Namella says, all right, I think I already read that. Wesley, thank you for that. I did already catch up with that. And Six Scale Mafia goes on to say, I think I'm critical because I remember reading and watching great science fiction for decades. The Star Wars novels, for example, mostly were amazing. I feel I've spoiled myself or I'm expecting better. Is that fair? What do you guys think? Is it fair? Should we?
Of course it's fair. I think we should always expect excellence in anything that we watch or read. And that's why we feel the way we do. The reason, because when we don't get that level of excellence, we notice it and it's not as satisfying. And we won't put our dollars, I know people have said that part of the blame is that we are spending money on things we're not satisfied with, but drawn back to an IP because we had that level of excellence at one time. And we're expecting it each time. And for many of us disappointed, we keep going back. But there's nothing wrong with expecting a certain level of excellence and a certain benchmark in your favorite shows.
Look, I agree.
Yeah,
Go ahead, sorry,
I definitely agree. I agree with that. You know, I don't think that it's fair to have expectations. I mean, I don't think it's fair, you know, especially when you want, you know, something to be great. It's okay, and I think that's the way we should view things, because our opinions actually push evolution along. Like they hear our voices, just like in the 6-scale community. Like if they hear our voices about certain things that we don't like, they make those changes. You know what I mean? But at the same time, they make the changes within reason. My thing is, okay, if we have that expectation, we want to see things great. If we've read, it's like sometimes, like people say, you hold on to the past and there are things that you basically cherish from those particular moments. But if you continue to bring the past along with you, you'll never embrace the future. Like you'll never be able to see the future for what it really is. Sometimes everything has its time and place. What we enjoy then, we have to understand that everything you, and it's okay to really hold on to that same feeling that you got. And we want to see that level of evolution, but we have to also accept when those things do change and give them a space to breathe. If it's wrong and it fails, then we are allowed to be highly opinionated on it. But if it is successful and we can basically see and say and admit that it's successful, we have to be willing to admit when something is successful. That's why I like the simple fact that Taika Waititi said that he writes a great story. He wants to make sure he writes it within the continuity of Star Wars. He wants it to feel like a Star Wars film. He doesn't just want to write something and then have them place a Star Wars label on it, even if he doesn't actually feel as though it's the right story. And I'm glad he's taking his time in doing that. But we have that and say, okay, he wants to write something different, but he actually wants it to feel like a Star Wars. And when him just saying that made me feel so much. And I think that no matter if it's Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, you know what I mean, Pixar, Tom and Jerry, it doesn't matter. As long as you basically write, stay true to that IP, you give us something different, but you stay true to the IP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's really, really, like I said last night, when we basically got Knights of the Old Republic, it was a well-written story and I loved it, and it was something that was totally different, and I want to see that type of story. I want to see that because it had nothing to do with the characters that we know now. It was something it was totally different from what we know. But again, it's like I said, I mean, it's okay to hold on to the nostalgia of the past and the things that we felt and how we felt from it. But when if it evolves and we want to see change, we have to be willing to accept that change as well, within reason. Because if that change is bad, then hell yeah, speak out about it. You know what I mean? And be respectful, you know, about how you feel. That's just how I feel. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't know. It's again, like I said, we live in a world where things are highly opinionated, and they should be, and it should be, and our voices should be heard. Like we would give our opinions constructively and just stand firm. If I don't like a character, if you don't like the character that I like, and you say that and you give me an explanation why, I'm be like, you know, it's cool. Even though we don't agree, it's still cool. You don't like the character, I like the character. Doesn't mean any of us are wrong for how we feel. Let's just move on. You know what I mean? And just, you know what I mean? Hopefully it gets better. Hopefully we meet each other halfway, I think. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. I think that, look, for me, I just want to know, and I think the funny thing is I think all of fandom, all of us, for all of our differing points of view or where we're coming from, we all want that. We all want the same things. We want great stories well told.
Yeah, we do.
And I think I don't think that we are stuck in some nostalgia thing. Like, I'm a lifelong fan of these kinds of stories. I've always moved forward. And the thing is, like with Star Trek, up until 2009, Star Trek was always growing and evolving. and changing. I was getting new characters. I was getting new situations. I was getting new insight into the universe. And in 2009, they decided we're going to go remake Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. We're going to go back and remake Star Trek. And they've been doing that ever since. And I look at Star Trek Strange New Worlds, everyone's like, oh, look, no doubt it's a fun show. I can watch it. But to me, all the stories are various rehashes of something else. The characters are half of them were taken from the original series, from the 60s. You know, and Anson Mount is very charismatic. But when I watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I just don't believe it. I don't believe the set design. I don't believe the way anything looks. I don't believe the uniforms. I don't believe what the actors. I don't believe any of the dialogue. Everyone's talking to everybody like they're contemporary. They're not on any kind of a military vessel at all. And I understand why people like it. I do. It's fun for a lot of people. But for what I'm looking for, it's just yet another example of how modern Star Trek is written by. It's not sophisticated. I don't feel the people. I want to feel that, like, I feel that Vince Gilligan, when I watch Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, I feel that the writers are smarter than I am. They're ahead of me.
Rob, can I admit something to you real quick, Rob?
Yeah.
Not to get off topic, and I don't not to interrupt. I'm sorry. This is real quick. I have a crush on 7 of 9.
Well, you should.
Because she's an amazing. She's beautiful, bro. I just wanted to say that.
Can I tell you a funny story about her?
Yeah.
So, back in the day, about 30 years ago, one of my friends from high school, Kelly Goto, went to college with her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this is when she first moved to LA. We all hung out all the time. And we knew her as Lynn. Lynn Ryan was her name. And it was funny because, like, in my movie Free Enterprise that I made, Sean, my friend Sean, who's passed away, he did a photo shoot with her. He had his own clothing label and did a photo shoot with her. One of those posters is actually in Free Enterprise of Jerry Ryan. Nobody knows this. This is something that I always forget to talk about it. But it's funny. I like 7 of 9 too. I think the character, they wrote the approach to the character was good. By the way, Anthony can tell you the next Star Trek figure that goes on up for pre-order is 7 of 9.
Is 7 of 9? Yes.
Hell yeah, Mafia!
Next week.
Hell yeah, Mafia! I'm just
or
answering
the week
your
after
question.
next, the 21st.
I'm answering
June
this
21st.
question. Hell yes,
That
I
means,
am.
Yeah,
Hell
that means
yeah.
I gotta send.
I'm not ordering any of the Voyager figures, but it still does look very good.
Oh yeah, I have to have them all. Except I did not. I'm not going to buy Michael Burnham. I'm going to buy and that Lael, just because I can't stand the not just her character. I can't stand those uniforms.
I don't. You know what? I don't think okay. Here's me looking at that character, bro. And I'm looking at the figure. The figure doesn't, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, my own. That figure doesn't look like her to me, bro.
No,
they could have done a better job. And it's a prototype, right?
Me,
or is it the final figure?
It does not look like her to me, man.
Nope.
It doesn't. I saw it. I was like,
a lot of people have been saying that about that figure.
It doesn't. It just doesn't. It doesn't look like her to me.
In regards to Strange New Worlds, and of course, you know, they've made a big deal about Strange New Worlds is going to be going back to what we would expect from a Star Trek show. It's not spectacular. It's not strange. It doesn't feel new. But what it does have is a lot of sex appeal, Robert. And I guess if they were trying to pull in new viewers who want to say, I'm really into this new Star Trek. This is amazing. I've never seen it. I didn't know Star Trek could be like this. And the reason why is because Star Trek is absolutely not like this show. I think that, the show is addressing some other topics, and it's all about the sex appeal, at least from what I can see in this show. They've got an incredibly good-looking cast that just absolutely takes your breath away, and I enjoy watching it for that reason.
Sure.
But this is just another example of a show, from the outside, it looks like Star Trek, but there isn't anything strange about it. I guess if it was supposed to be strange, we're seeing, people doing sort of things that we wouldn't normally see on a Star Trek show, perhaps. But it doesn't feel like the Star Trek we know. And I think that while the crew is together, they're a team. They definitely work together. We're not getting that amazing part of a storyline that we would expect from Star Trek. No,
it's funny to me because the The thing about Star Trek is, to me, it was always about the elite, the best of the best. You had to be that, because on the edge of the final frontier, if you weren't, people would die. You would die. You know, and that's why you have to be the best. And I feel that modern Star Trek, whether it's Discovery or Picard or this show, I feel that all the characters, I don't believe any of them. I don't believe the way they look. Like Ortegas, I mean, why would you cut your hair like that? I mean, I understand why they're going for that, but I'm like, and why is Pike's? I look at Pike, I look at his costume, and I look at his pomade, hair, and I'm like, you can't. I just imagine him knowing. I know what it would take to do that. I can't imagine a Starfleet officer would style his hair that way. And people look at me and go, "Oh, Rob, that's nitpicking." I'm like, but see, the thing is, I'm the Viceroy of Verisimilitude. If I look at something, I don't believe, I keep saying this, there's nothing, when I look at Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I don't believe the costumes. I don't believe the sets. I don't believe the colors. I don't believe the way, I don't believe that the colors even on the bridge are wrong, and I know why they do it. They put the con and ops in red outfits, so you've got gold and red, and it looks good in the camera. Don't believe it, because the color of those uniforms are based on your rank and what department you're in. But they've just gone fast and loose with that. They've completely gone for aesthetics, and they keep liberally borrowing from other sources, whether it's Star Trek novels and not giving credit. And I'm like, so I'm like, the writers aren't even writing their own stories. They are literally they're lifting stories from other things. And while like you could say, well, Rob, the original Star Trek did that. Like Balance of Terror is just a German U-boat movie, a sub movie in the North Atlantic. Yes, but that was the structure of that story, but they created something new. They created the Romulans in that story, and they're doing something new. And this story, I understand why people like it. It's the easiest, most palatable TV show to watch ever. Like, everything about it is like, I get it. It is designed to give that. And I look at this and I'm like, but that's not what Star Trek was.
Yeah, it's hitting all the pleasure points. And, I was speaking to Anthony about it because I absolutely am getting the 1/6 scale figures from this series. I just love how everybody looks. And he mentioned that, the Pike character is included, I think, in the Discovery line. But I told him, I said, are you guys making that? And apparently he said yes. And I'm like, I'm getting every single one of those because
the Discovery Pike is good. Incredible. The head sculpt's really, really good.
Yeah, it really is. And you're correct. I mean, this might be the most glammed up version of Star Trek we've ever seen. And, you're right about the idea of having a show that's supposed to kind of fascinate you and make you ponder and think. None of these episodes do that from what I've seen. And the episode that I was most disappointed in was the one where they talked about Uhura and how she had kept second guessing herself. And that made me feel very disappointed that they felt that she was even more like that. A woman who can speak 37 languages is suddenly going to be apprehensive about her abilities. It seemed to be a bit contradictory. She's an officer and she's an elite officer because she's on the bridge of a starship, the main starship of the entire Federation. So I was very surprised that they put her in that position of doubt. But after that episode, they seemed to pick up things and it went a little bit further. But this show, I don't think if it gets a season 2, Robert, we're going to be seeing anything different. This is what this show is. And
season 2 is already, they're already making it. It was given 2 seasons from the get-go. And
I actually heard someone say that this series reminded them of The Love Boat.
You know what though? I'm right there with you because look, I'm watching For All Mankind, and For All Mankind is a great show. To me.
So if you want to get those good feels from The Love Boat, because let me tell you something. Like I told you before, I never thought I would ever see Spock getting to in a position to mount to Pal. I Thank you. I never thought I would ever see that, but they were it was a horizontal mambo position.
Oh yeah.
And I don't really see that in any show, let alone Star Trek. So things we are going where we've never gone before on Star Trek. But I think that's
which is great, which is fine. That's a really interesting, compelling story. But like, why did you do that? Why did you feel the need to actually go rip that off? Or why is number one's backstory taken from Dorothy Fontana's book Vulcan's Glory? Why did in Discovery did they make Pike aware of his incoming accident, which was stolen from the Star Trek novel by Margaret Wanderer Bonanno, Burning Dreams? Like, I don't like watching a show where I'm like, oh, they took that from this Star Trek novel and that Star Trek novel and that science fiction novel. The writers are not writing their own show. They're going and they're judiciously picking. They're picking from all of this other stuff, and I'm like, I could do that, and I'm like, you're not even giving me an original Star Trek show. You're giving me a Star Trek show that was written by a bunch of people, and you've taken the ingredients of what they've done and put it in a blender and passed it off as your own work. And I feel that that Star Trek now is a result of a whole generation of kids that grew up writing papers where they Googled other people's work and paraphrased it all and turned in papers that was someone else's work. And they're so used to doing that now they've grown up and become television screenwriters. They cut and paste. They hunt around the internet. They steal other people's work and pass it off as their own because that's what they've been doing their whole lives. And what I don't like is, like, why is it that I have to know what stories you're stealing from and what authors you're taking stuff from? And people call me like, well, I really like the show. I'm like, great, but philosophically, I'm watching a show written by a bunch of thieves. And
but the other element too, Robert, is not only is that occurring, not only is the story kind of, let's say plagiarism occurring, but also when they need a character, they're not actually thinking about an appropriate character. What seems to be happening is that they'll pick a character, like they have an electronic anthology of Star Trek. And let's say, I need a Vulcan female, type in, pop up a character, and the character doesn't fit in at all in the situation, but that's the character they're going to put in the story.
Yes. Yeah.
But they feel they've accomplished something because they've looked at the anthology, and the anthology says, well, yes, that character was alive at the same time as everybody else, and you could use that one. Great choice. But in context, the choice makes no sense.
Well, and also, they're also borrowing all these characters from other creators. It's like this weird, tell me a new original story. Half their cast was taken from the original series, which I don't understand. Why is Nurse Chapel there? Why is Lieutenant Uhura there? Why is Dr. Mbenga there? Why are you these were opportunities. If I had created a TV show in the Star Trek universe, I would use that opportunity to create all brand new characters that I created. Why do you want to populate half of your show with characters that you didn't create?
Because they need to use these characters because they're in the anthology, Robert.
Right. Well, I know you're absolutely right, and
that's what they're doing. They're like, if it doesn't appear in the anthology, they can't use the character.
I mean, they used.
So let me ask you a question, Rob. So do you think? Okay, so, and this is just me, who I actually, and mind you, sorry if it's a crime, I haven't watched any of the new shows.
That's
period.
Okay. That's not a crime. You're better off.
I haven't watched, because the thing is, I feel as though, like, talking about, I go back to the era, of course, of Deep Space Nine. I go back before that, like around that particular time. So any of the new shows I haven't, the new films I did watch, but I mean, again, J.J. Abrams did it, so that speaks for itself. So I kind of like this, I feel as though they should have left the characters where they were and just told new stories. Would that have been better?
Absolutely.
Or do you think, no, they should have just left it alone? Or do you think that they should have, them carrying on with new stories, with new characters, would have been better for the IP, and would you have followed those new stories?
Oh, 100%. You know,
yeah, because traditionally that's the MO of the Star Trek that we know, is that they create new characters going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, part of my problem with all this modern Star Trek is they're retconning Star Trek. They're going back and changing everything around, and I can't get past it because I'm like, they want to use Star Trek history, but then they want to change it and mold it to wherever they want to take it, and they don't. I mean, it's funny now. Now I love getting people throwing back in my face. Well, Rob, the original series was so campy and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, because it was made 56 years ago. You know, and you have to watch it in the context it's presented. And at the time, it was cutting edge television. And now, what I really don't like about modern Star Trek too is it's so colloquial. It's so of today. Everyone talks to each other like they're next door to me right now. Like, I have no sense that this is a quasi-military organization in the 23rd century. And what's funny is, back to the topic of tonight, you know, being fanned, like, everyone's like, oh, you're a gatekeeper. I'm like, here's the thing. Our civilization has been, we've been told, or we're so, if it makes us feel good, then that's all we need from it. We don't need it to aspire to be anything better. As long as we feel good about it and we like it, then it's fine. And I feel that kind of thinking is what's got us into a lot of trouble. And we don't, like, Star Trek is an elitist show for elitist people. It was a niche show. The people that, look, so many people that watch Star Trek originally or in syndication went on to become scientists and engineers, and they were totally inspired because they too, the people who liked Star Trek back in the day, were elitist. You know, they were people that they were special people. That, not everybody, but a lot of people were. They were special, and they went on. They accomplished great things because Star Trek was an inspiration. Now I feel, I've said this before, everybody wants to see themselves in Star Trek. Oh, that character's just like me. When I watched Star Trek, no one was like me. I aspired to be those people. I'm like, one day I might be as cool as they are. But that day may never have come. Now I feel like all of Star Trek is pandering to the audience. They're trying to let's let our audience identify with this character or this character or that character. Yeah. I liked Spock, and I suppose I identified with him, but not really, because I didn't know what it was like to be half Vulcan, half human. But nowadays I feel that everybody's got, I know, let's ship this couple, and let's do this and let's do that. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is so infantilized. You know, Anson Mount's a very handsome guy. When he takes his shirt off, even I'm like, wow, that guy looks good. You know, and it's but is the story good?
Yeah.
You know, I get you. I don't know.
It's not, and you know, there's going to be every episode's going to have a scene where some guy has his shirt off, or you know, somebody's kissing in an episode, or finds themselves in a compromising position. That's what we are seeing. And, you know, it's kind of pushing the episodes towards that kind of playfulness. Honestly, the only thing missing are punchlines, because this could actually be a comedy.
Oh, you know what? If it was just a flat out comedy, I think it would work. I mean, half of the lines they say are borderline comedic anyway. Nobody talks to anybody like they're on a military ship. I think if you ask people there, like with Discovery, what is your rank? I think half the actors would be like, I don't know. Which is the show doesn't seem to care either. Like, there is no discipline. Pike only has dinner with the principal cast. All the principal cast come to my quarters because I always fraternize with you guys. Come on, you know, I don't have a command staff. I hang out with the cadets. You know, it's all fine. But and for me,
I'm waiting to watch behind the scenes. One of these shows, like behind the scenes, like when we see like behind the scenes and they actually show, well, this is what happened behind the scenes of this particular show, like a blooper reel, but like they show real events, certain things that happen. And I'm waiting to see behind the scenes when they go cut, and then they just see like a white-haired 6 foot whatever man coming out with a bat, just destroying the entire set, and they have to contain them. And then you turn that person around, it's you. like did you see, like for instance, like Thor: The Dark World? Remember when they had that newscaster, and then you seen what's his name? I forget the name of the character, where he was running around like the archives.
Yeah.
And they had to, it's just like it would be Rob. That would be funny as hell.
Well,
bro.
the
I'd
funny
laugh
thing
my ass
is,
off.
I guess what bothers me is we have so much great television. You know, we're in the golden age of TV in terms of writing.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at The Boys, you look at For All Mankind, you look at, there's some really great writing going on in the genre space, and Star Trek should be the Tiffany standard. Even the Orville this season, it seems weird because it's much more serious than it's been, but even the Orville is, and look, the thing is, Star Trek has all the ingredients. It just, it all, but it's a sexy show that goes down easy.
Yeah.
So people like it.
It sure does.
People are like, I like it. It's the best sci-fi TV show since 1987. I'm like, is it though?
It's a sexy sci-fi show.
Right. But that's what it's overly sexualized.
Yes,
you know,
it is. It is overly sexualized. Yes.
You know, even though the reputation of the original Star Trek is that, it's such a sexy show, but it was also serious too. I mean, we see it looking back as it being more campy, but I think Star Trek and Star Wars are suffering from the same problem. You have large committees of people that get to weigh in and on what's in those shows, and there's not a lot of creative visionaries behind it. And I think that's because a lot of these shows, like my favorite shows, the ongoing directors, the directors are usually executive producers as well, and they stick with the show and they direct multiple episodes across multiple seasons. And I feel that these shows aren't that way, but whatever. What can I do? Wesley Namila says, Rob, what Blu-ray or 4K movies do I need on my radar that are rare movies? What classic movies do you think? Oh, rare. It's not, you spell this rib. It's rare. That are rare movies. What classic movies do you think might be lost or out of print in the future? Rob, I hope you collect physical media forever. Well, Wesley, I will collect. I think physical media probably has. I would give it 10 years on the outside. For me, it's just collect the films that you love, and get the best versions of them. I'm looking right now at a shelf. The shelf I'm looking at probably has, 100 special edition 4K movies on it. And it's just got things that I love 4K because that's where physical media goes to die. But not all 4K do I love. I like 4K films that are usually photochemical movies. I think they look the best on 4K. A lot of the stuff that's made now is shot digitally at 2K and they upconvert it. But if you can get a movie that was shot on film, like a couple of real standout Blu-ray titles, Die Hard, I've said this before, Miri, because of the way Jan de Bont shot it. The Matrix movies look great on 4K. I mean, most photochemical films do, if they gave them a lot of love and tender care, like Jaws and things like that, look great in 4K. So really, and movies that are going out of print, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, Vinegar Syndrome released the Swedish rape revenge film thriller A Cruel Picture that came out in the early 70s, and they sold out of it. It was they made 10,000 copies. The thing is, do you want to have that movie in your collection? It's pretty rough, but it's worth buying because it'll go out of print and no one will do what they did. So it's tough. I mean, ultimately, I don't think every generation we lose more and more of our pop culture. And I always say that pop culture, like generations, have a 20-year lifespan. And every 20 years, things fade into the distance. When was the last time you watched a movie from the 40s? I mean, maybe some of you did, but
today, because my mother watches Turner Classic movies all day long.
Yeah, so there you go. But but you know what I mean? Like, Checkers the Inventor is talking about. He weighs in and talks about Lightyear. Says the problem is we are to assume the Buzz toy is referring to this character. This film contradicts the glimpses we got into Buzz's backstory in Toy Story 1 through 4. Well, see, I think the thing about Buzz is that he's a toy. Like Buzz Lightyear, that we know that Tim Allen Buzz Lightyear is a toy. He doesn't know the actual story of the movie that he's a toy from. So there's a disconnect there. And I think it's weird that people are looking. They clearly say that in the Toy Story universe, this is the movie that Andy went to see that made him want to get a toy of Buzz Lightyear in the first place. Like when I was a kid and went and saw Star Wars, I'm like, I want toys of all those characters. And then I get them. But my experience with my toys has nothing to do with Star Wars the movie. My Hot Toys of Star Wars, my right behind me, the Obi-Wan clone figure with the Stormtrooper armor that was Hot Toys and what I guess Hot Toys and when did they do that? Do you have that figure? Can you see that Obi-Wan figure behind me?
Which one?
I guess you probably can't. He's in the Stormtrooper armor. It's
you're talking about the
that's a Clone War.
Wars?
Clone War
yeah, the
armor.
Clone Wars
armor. Yeah.
Because that was the first
General
Hot Toys
Kenobi armor.
sideshow collaboration, I think.
That's a great figure.
Yeah, I mean, it's old, but I have him right up there. He's standing on my Prince tambourine. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. But that's the thing about all this continuity business. I mean, Ash Chase asks, what happens to the good old days when we just see a movie and we don't have all these expectations, i.e. Marvel shows or Star Wars shows? But here's the thing. They've created that. But they've created that expectation because they've created this continuity that we're following. And, the MCU, the first 23 movies of the MCU, the Infinity Saga, were all pretty good. Even the movies that weren't so great, if you go back and you watch Iron Man 2 or Thor the Dark World, Lael, they're still pretty good. Even Incredible Hulk.
I love
with Ed
Iron
Norton.
Man 2.
Yeah.
I love Iron Man 2, man.
It's a lot of fun.
I watched it the other day. See, I have this thing, Rob. So I was kind of telling people this on Say What that and when I know I'm actually getting a figure in, like for instance today, I knew that Miles is actually coming. Miles from Into the Spider-Verse is on its way. So what I did was I watched that movie today and I got ideas. Just like I knew my Mark 5 was actually coming. Exactly. So just like I knew my Mark 5 was actually coming, I went back and I watched Iron Man 2. And because I had that now, I have ideas. But no, I think those particular shows, those films, they hold up. I mean, I guess it depends on the person's expectation, interpretation, and how they actually view it. I mean, I loved it. I loved Iron Man 2. It gave us some of the big, the best character developments and as far as back and forth, you saw chemistry between him and Pepper, him in between and Rhodey. I love it. I love the movie Dark World. There were certain things about that I would. I mean, it could have been done better, and I think that's what Hemsworth, he was actually saying how he doesn't he was bored with the character before he got to Ragnarok because there were certain way he said that it was the same thing, the same pacing. But I found things about the Dark World that I loved. You know what I mean? I was able to attach myself to. But I think they all have their place in the bigger scheme of things. Where Marvel's going right now is to be really predetermined. I mean, because like I said, I see no attachments to anything right now.
Right,
it's all self-contained, and I guess it's the way they want it to be right now. But I know we'll see. We'll see where.
The Richard says hello. The Richard sending in some love and aloha to my beloved friends in the chat and R&B and Lael.
Hey, Richard.
What's going on, Rich?
Hi.
But I want thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. I want to say one thing about expectations is, look, these studios, especially with these ongoing storylines, they've set up our expectations. Mm-hmm. Like we're used to getting great stuff, and if we don't get great stuff, we're like, what the fuck happened? Like, why'd you guys give me something not great? Come on now. And they've set this expectation for us.
Yeah,
we didn't.
Yeah.
So Joseph Michael has been a member of the channel for 8 months. PGS Hero says, if Lightyear fails to break even, 200 million, do you think Disney will send Pixar's next film, Elementals, straight to Disney Plus again? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, it really depends. This Lightyear situation's baffling to me. Admittedly, I've only seen the first 30 minutes of the movie, but I thought it was delightful. I mean, I really liked it as a science fiction adventure. I think that, and I find the public's acceptance of this movie kind of odd. The fact that they were expecting like a Toy Story movie, but this isn't that. And I thought its meta connection to the Toy Story franchise was kind of neat, and not kind of neat. It was really neat. And they say it right at the beginning of the movie that this is Andy. Buzz Lightyear's a toy from Andy's favorite movie. This is that movie. And yet people are trying to make this connection between. This has nothing to do with the Andy and the toys and the toys, Bill Peep and Mr. Potato Head and Woody and Buzz. It has nothing to do with those characters at all. It's a movie that exists in that universe that human beings can go see. that Buzz Lightyear is based on. He's a toy from that movie. And I love that idea. And people are like, well, I don't get it. And I'm like, okay, well, what can I say? But if this does, I mean, if this movie tanks, I thought this movie was going to make huge money. I'm hoping word of mouth will help it, but it's sort of already been painted with this brush that, I mean, somebody even called it a direct-to-video movie. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I mean, give me a break. It's not a direct-to-video movie. For God's sake now, man. Let's see. Isaiah Rules says, welcome to an Imagination Connoisseur. Well, Isaiah, thank you for becoming a member. You are most welcome. By the way, for new members, we are having a membership chat. For those of you who don't know, I hang out with you for like 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes we go 5 hours. We just shoot the shit. Ask me what you want. I'll answer any question, whatever you want to know. But that'll be at 11 p.m. Pacific time. Dr. J says, hey, team. Rob, Paramount Plus are pumping out ads suggesting Strange New Worlds is a smash hit. Do you still hold out hope that any success for this show may spawn a new, more original series? No, not with this creative team. I think I think what they need to do, is rather than have exclusive content. No, I really believe this. Open it up to all creators, because they're not interested in Star Trek continuity now. And that was part of my fandom, was the interesting continuity that they had maintained in the Star Trek universe. All that went out the window in 2009. And the people, Secret Hideout, that are producing modern Star Trek, they have no interest in any kind of fealty or any kind of link to the original series or the original universe. By the way, the Popcast, the guys over at the Podcast that I love, they did a video about how the universe, that we're actually in an alternate timeline that was created by the events of First Contact, Star Trek First Contact. And I'm like, I'll buy that. They've changed my headcanon. So the Star Trek universe, that as we know it, the original, call it the real Star Trek universe, not Prime, but the real universe, ended after 1994's Generations. In 96, when First Contact came out and it depicted the Borg's attack on Earth and going through time, that altered the timeline. So everything beyond First Contact, even in the past, is something different. And I buy that. That helps me sleep at night, so I don't have to be angry all the time.
Wait, everything beyond First Contact.
When they went back in time in First Contact, when they followed the Borg back in time, they changed the timeline.
Yes, they did.
They changed,
and that was the Next Generation.
Yeah, that was Next Generation. But it also, because they went back to 21st century Montana, once they did that, they changed the timeline from that point forward. So everything forward, that means Discovery and Strange New Worlds take place in this new timeline. Even Enterprise took place in the new timeline. So, and I love that idea. I'm like, I'll buy that. So that helps.
It makes
it helps you sleep at night. Then I don't have to be angry.
They must have changed something, because remember, as they were chasing the Borg got to Earth first and they assimilated everybody.
Yep.
We saw that, and we know that somehow they must have done something that changed the future.
Yeah. So I'll buy that. I can live with that. I can feel good about that. S Beam, who's been a member for 21 months, part of the channel.
Hi, S Beam.
He says, hello, Rob and Lael. I hope you had a great day. Watched Figure Flex Friday earlier. I'm going to take some more pics of Gandalf and Strange tomorrow for next time.
Yeah, that was amazing. S Beam, you killed it, bro. I loved it.
That
was
idea.
An amazing story. Yeah, he told a great story. It was like you had to read between the lines, and I don't know if this was what he meant. You know, when you look at the characters, it's like Gandalf's looking at him like, really, bro? And then you see Strange like pointing inside of a book like, no, for real, this is how the actual spell is supposed to be. And it's like Gandalf is looking at him like, for real, you're reading that book? It was incredible, man. I love the way he did it. The narration was incredible. It was just like you look at it and you can tell exactly what you think. I loved it, SP. It was incredible.
By the way, Martino Sumoni, who's a friend of this channel, good guy, he has a new episode of Play Trek that I put up that he makes. He's exploring the idea of the scale wars that we came up with, 1/6 versus 1/12 or whatever scale wars. He has the Playmobil Enterprise, which, by the way, he got for me. He got me one, and it's going to be hanging from there. There's a beam right here I'm gonna have my Playmobil Enterprise. Today I got a box in the mail. It was a late birthday present, and it was the Playmobil Knight Rider kit.
Oh, really?
The black Knight Rider he sent me to go along with the A-Team van and the DB5 he got me. Here's the Playmobil Auric Goldfinger figure. If you can see that, which I love.
Oh wow!
I know, it's hilarious. But yeah, so that's good stuff. Mega React said, I just ordered my first 1/6 scale figure, Exo 6's Benjamin Sisko. When shit hits the fan, Sisko is the man. That's a great looking figure. I have to say, I mean, I'm a huge Exo 6 Star Trek fan. And for those people who are thinking about, in terms of action figure Hot Toys, take note. Exo 6 is making all kinds of different ethnicities with their action figure line. They're doing Empress Georgiou, who's Chinese. They're doing Michael Burnham. She's black. They're doing Sisko and Tuvok, also black. And these are things coming out early on in their line, which I think is great. They're making more women, 7 of 9, Captain Janeway, and these figures are selling out, man. So you might want to rethink the fact that we don't have the Dora Milaje. Just saying.
Right.
Would really like the Dora Milaje. Would really like them. How about a Valkyrie? Come on now.
Yeah.
Where's
Hopefully they have
Valkyrie?
no excuse. Hopefully get one next month.
Because I love that armor.
Yeah.
Bert says, great week for thematic Hot Toys, snitching A-Train and self-snitching Bail Organa. I hope Bail comes with a transmitter as a base accessory. Did they announce Bail Organa as a figure?
No.
No, I was gonna. That's pretty funny. Yeah, Bail Organa. Come on, dude. Are you gonna? Don't say that over an open channel, dude. Come on, it's not good. I can't when somebody does that. It bothers me. Jared Snyder says, "What Bad Robot and Syncophonic Hideout are doing is not plagiarism, but artistic necrophilia."
Yeah.
I think much of our pain is we are told to shut up and enjoy bad writing, direction, and product. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't understand why we're not demanding the best of the best. We should be getting the best of the best.
Yeah, we have to.
Checkers the Inventor says Toy Story 2 starts with a Buzz video game. There you go. It's true. Dr. J. It's funny when you say Dr. J, I think of Julius Irving. But Dr. J says, hey, team, Rob, Paramount Plus have been pumping. Oh, wait. I think I already read this. Paramount Plus are pumping out ads suggesting Brave New Worlds, Strange New Worlds is a smash hit. Do you still hold out hope that no, I don't have any. I read that already. I don't. I have no hope until we get a new creative team. I know it's bad. Yeah. And then we've got a few more. We've got some. So, Swag Props, our friend Swag Props, Cal, all the way from Indonesia. I'm already seeing some YouTubers ridiculing Red Letter Media for liking Obi-Wan. That's the problem with modern fandom. Instead of having cogent discourse on each other's differences of opinions, they resort to childish name-calling. Couldn't agree more. I got childish name-called all day today. But I deserved it. But yeah, I agree. I don't know. Why is it? Why do you guys think people, whenever you criticize like a show, and you don't even criticize fans of that show, you're just criticizing the show, why do so many people take it so personally? It's,
I don't know, man. I mean, I think it's again, it all goes back to what I've been saying, like, years ago when we, had certain shows, films, we didn't have, social media where it was so vocal, where everybody can have so many different opinions. I don't know. I guess it's and the thing is, we're all passionate about everything, and you're allowed to be passionate. You know what I mean? If you love something so much, you're allowed to be critical and passionate about it. But I think it just goes in the, it's when you create, I want to say the negative zone, like when people step in that arena and it just becomes a back and forth push and pull, and then it actually goes in a more violent, it takes in like a more violent turn. I don't know. It's just, it's weird, and you should be allowed to be passionate and speak your mind about certain things without it becoming aggressive, like overly aggressive. You know what I mean? And it's a space that we should live in. But I just think that unfortunately, we live in a space where, the negative outweighs the positive in every discussion. And, the only way to create that, like to have a smaller group discussion outside of I think it's like when we have these live discussions and when it's a live panel and we all disagree on the panel, we can see each other's emotion. We can actually really see and dictate, just based off of mannerisms, certain gestures. You can see a person's posture, whether or not, and you can understand that, okay, it's uncharted territory, or there's certain things that we shouldn't talk about, or I understand where that person's opinion comes from. But when we look at everything online, it's like it's hard to really, or to receive a person's opinion because you don't know where they were coming from. Right. And it's like it's a lot of keystrokes, you know what I mean? So without the visual interpreting what's being written is hard. Like it's really, really hard. You don't, somebody may have, a really good synopsis or thesis behind the reason why they don't like certain things, but I don't know, it's just hard to read. But I mean, in this, I just wish it wasn't so evasive, so aggressive, nowadays when it comes to certain things that we love, or, if this person likes this, that person is, then they challenge. It's always back and forth. I just wish it wasn't as aggressive. But I mean, I think that now we just have to accept it. It's the new norm where things like this are going to happen. It's sad, but it's just the way it is. So,
Yeah, it's true. MCP Scotty says, happy trolling, Rob. This evening, I'm watching Star Wars. Star Wars. It's crazy refreshing. Keep that gate. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to keep being a gatekeeper. It's funny. To be a gatekeeper is a lonely life, and you get criticized all day long. And it's funny. All I want is great stuff. I just want great stuff. I want great shows for you, you, and you, for all of us. But I'm a gatekeeper, only because I want stuff to be great. Yeah, but Swack, I've been seeing a lot of people ridiculing Red Letter Media. And look, they've certainly earned their keep. They've done some great stuff. I first discovered them for their Generations review they did with Plinkett's first review. I think that was. It was amazing. Swack goes on to say, in Amok Time, Kirk went to great lengths to defy orders just to bring Spock back to Vulcan for his Pon farr, when we now only get to know that T'Pring can just hop on her personal shuttle anytime and go to them. Yeah, look, they don't care about anything that we've seen in Star Trek. That T'Pring is just traveling around, that Spock's hooking up with T'Pring and all that. If you now look at the original Amok Time episode where Spock has to go back to Vulcan, T'Pring is the ultimate, I mean, pardon my P's and Q's, but she was the ultimate bitch in that episode. She literally sets up Spock so she can have the guy that she's shtupping, that she wants more than she wants Spock, or she didn't ever want Spock. And this elaborate ruse, she's going to allow Spock to kill Captain Kirk just so she can have the man that she loves and not Spock. I mean, it's awesome. She's awesome, but now they've completely demystified any of that. They don't. The funny thing about, what I'm actually convinced. It's funny. I was on the John Campy show with Chris Carr yesterday, and Chris Carr said something to me. She turned to me. We were talking off camera, and she said, you're a romantic. And I said to her, I am a romantic. And one of the things about being a romantic is you have higher ideals. You believe in something outside of yourself. You believe that we can be better, that we can strive to be. Star Trek, the idea of Star Trek is romantic. Star Wars was romantic. None of these things are romantic today. They've bled. It's all of the moment. It's all of this snarky banter and, let's satisfy ourselves in the moment. And there is no greater good. There is no higher ideal. It's just what's going on right now. How can we be entertaining right now? What pithy quip can we say?
It's instant gratification. It's like a downgraded version of pornography.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, even with pornography, you have to work to get yourself there. But now I feel that you don't have to do, there's no work involved. And it's just, it's like in Strange New Worlds, for instance, in the 60s, because they couldn't show these things, they would never spend valuable screen time showing characters in bed having sex because you've only got so much time. So you show them go into a room and you cut to Kirk's pulling on his boots while Deela's brushing her hair. I mean, that's what you do. But in this, when you have these love scenes, you're losing valuable time for plot. And in science fiction adventure shows, you don't necessarily need to see sex scenes. And by the way, I love sex scenes. But in these shows, you are using valuable screen real estate or time, actually valuable time real estate, to be titillating without you're titillating, you're not storytelling. And it's like, look, we live in a society where you can get Pornhub. I don't need to see sex in Star Trek. I welcome it, but keep that valuable screen time for plot and character machinations. I mean, to me, a sex scene does not convey any new information. Oh, these characters are romantically linked, and oh, it's slightly titillating. That's all you're getting, but you're eating up. You only have 45 minutes an episode or whatever, and you're eating up a sex scene. Is that what you want to do with your 2 or 3 minutes? Is have a sex scene here? I guess, because you want people to subscribe, but it's a very chaste sex scene. I mean, you're not going to get any kind of real hardcore, interesting action. Whatever.
No, but I noticed in Strange New Worlds that the uniforms are much more form-fitting, even where they place like the darts in the men's shirts. I'm not accustomed to seeing darts in men's clothing like that unless it's a military uniform, and those are somewhat a conservative shape, but these are very form-fitting, and on more than one occasion, I found the uniform, and their bodies are just like perfect. Like everybody on the show has an amazing body. I mean, it was so that you could see it.
Oh yeah, no, they do. Even Anson Mount, who's older, he looks fantastic. He probably worked out for a year before it's great. He's a great leading man, no doubt. I just wish they gave him compelling stories to be in.
Well, the worst part about it is knowing that, or at least suspecting that he may have a fate that disfigured him. And I'm like, that's cruel, isn't it? Because you're titillating us with this incredibly attractive man, and then what are you going to do? You're going to put him in a situation where he's all disfigured. You know, that's cool. They shouldn't have done that.
No, that's real. But first of all, wouldn't this whole series be about how he doesn't get to this situation?
Yeah.
You know your fate. The day that he knows, oh, I'm not going on that ship. I know it's going to happen to me. I mean, isn't that the whole point, that he can change his fate? This idea that in 10 years I'm going to go on this mission and I'm going to be irrevocably damaged forever. So I'm not, I mean, it's 10 years from now, but it's like, dude, our fate is what we make. Just don't go on the mission when it shows up in 10 years. I mean, and now he's never going to be in peril. Oh, you want me to go do that? I'll do that because I know I don't die doing that, because I'm going to die or I'm going to have my accident in 10 years. So I can do whatever the fuck I want up until then, because nothing will happen to me. It's such a weird thing to have gone down that route. But they went down that route because they read the Star Trek novel that was in. They read Burning Dreams, and they're like, ooh, that's a good idea, without really thinking through the ramifications of it. Like, if you knew your future...
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
If you knew it was going to happen... Let me pose this something. If you guys were Captain Christopher Pike, first of all, Lael, if you knew that 10 years from now, you were given a glimpse into your own future, and you know you're going to have a very debilitating accident that's going to leave you in a wheelchair where you can only blink yes or no. If you knew that was going to happen, and you knew the whens, the wheres, the whys, if you knew that was going to happen, would you use that knowledge, or would you just realize that, hey, nothing's going to happen to me for 10 years, so I can do anything I want? Like, what would you do?
Okay, so with Pike's story, of course, that it was based off of, so it was based off the simple fact that he had met a character who was, pretty much, I believe, disfigured, but he was in a dream state.
Well, yeah, he was actually, this is the stupidest thing. He was on Boreth, the Klingon monastery on Boreth, and he was using, again, this is how stupid Star Trek is. He was using the Klingon time crystals, and he saw into his own future.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw that, as we know from Star Trek, that he is going to save a bunch of people, and he's going to be hit with radiation, and he's going to be left basically in his mind works fine, but his body is decrepit, and he's in this electronic wheelchair, and he can only blink yes or no. And he knows that that's his fate 10 years
but
from now.
didn't he fall in love with like this female or something like that?
Yeah, oh yeah. So what happens is, he has this accident, and then Spock because he knows he can take them back to he can take Pike's broken body back to the Telosians, and the Telosians have such powerful psychic gifts. They'll give him the illusion of love and life with the woman he met there, and he's going to live happily ever after. And that's what happens in the menagerie. Spock commandeers the Enterprise, kidnaps his captain just to take him back to Talos 4 so he can lead a good life, so he doesn't have to just be in this fucking wheelchair for
the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life.
But now in the modern, this particular storyline, he sees that future.
Yes.
Okay.
He sees that
because
future.
if I saw that future, then I'd do everything to avoid it.
And he sees it frequently.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. So he knows it's coming. So it's not like time is an inevitability. You can change it. You can change your fate. It hasn't happened yet, and it'd be like, oh, I'm not going to get on this ship. I'm not going to I'm not going to do this, because he knows he's going. And it's so like 10 years from now, I don't know if I'm going to do it. Like, isn't that? I don't understand. If you have foreknowledge of an event, you can either prevent the event or not go. Yeah.
But does he know the ramifications of why that happens? So he knows what
yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Now, is this basically his injury is a result of saving other individuals?
Yes.
So he has a choice of whether or not to save them and risk that, that accident or whatever. But
what you do is you tell that ship not to go anywhere that day. You're like, hey, I have some foreknowledge. Do not send this ship to this place today. Maybe do it tomorrow or the next day. Like this idea that you already have this foreknowledge of what's going to happen, like you can't avoid your fate, is such a weird idea. I mean, it's antithetical to all time travel stories that we've ever seen. The whole point about going back through time is to the whole reason to write a story like that is to address your past. Like, what if this didn't happen? What if I open another door instead of this door? And oh my God, sliding doors, that movie. I mean, it's
I mean, I think that if we've all seen our future and we know that there's, things that can actually happen, we would try to do our best by any means, especially if we knew that our actions today change that trajectory.
And that's why I look at this. I'm like, you have the power to change your future. You should do it. Because you can. But modern Star Trek has an aversion to this. It's like in Star Trek 09, when Nero goes back in time, he's mad that the Romulan homeworld was destroyed by the hope of star-going Nova. He accidentally went back 100 years in time. My first place I would go would be back to the Romulan homeworld and go, yo, in 10 years, in 100 years, there's going to be this Nova. It's going to blow up the planet and kill everybody I love. Why don't you plan for the evacuation now? I'm bringing you knowledge from the future. But no, he just stays angry to go blow up Vulcan and then blow up the Earth. Well, if you're angry about something that hasn't happened yet and you have the power to change it, wouldn't you do that? That's why I think Star Trek 09 is the single dumbest science fiction film ever made. The antagonist is an idiot. Dr. No Time for Love, Dr. Jones says, I got my first hot toy. Empire Strikes Back, Lando Calrissian.
Yes.
I don't see any evidence of that old wizard Obi-Wan in Kenobi. Would have loved watching a veteran of a fallen order, gaining psychedelic otherworldly power, losing interest in the mundane and political. That could be interesting. I mean, he takes being a Jedi to the next level. He tunes in and trips out. That would be interesting. I mean, that would have been a really interesting exploration into the Force. If some of Kenobi was Liam Neeson leads him through maybe an episode training him about using the living Force and like reliving things and having. I mean, wouldn't it have been cool to see a flashback of, like, maybe we'll get it, of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan like suppressing some uprising on a planet a long time ago, and they actually both come out ahead and they stop a revolution from happening and save a planet, something like that, and show what Jedis can do at the height of their powers. I would have loved to have seen that.
That's what I was hoping for.
It would have been great. Anthony Gonzalez says, I just finished watching Valkyrie for my third time in a week. One of the best edited films I've seen in a while. John Ottman doesn't get enough credit. Also, why wasn't the Rogue cut the theatrical cut except of Days of Future Past? It is the better version that makes more sense. You know what? I don't even understand. So for those of you who don't know, X-Men Days of Future Past, there are 2 versions of it. There's the regular theatrical version, and there is the Rogue cut, which you can buy on, it's probably on Disney as well. I don't know why they cut Rogue out. Brian.
It made no sense.
I don't know if he's up right now. I'd call him, you know how I call Brian Singer on the phone and put him on the phone right now. And I don't know, I probably could call him. I wonder if he'd answer the phone. Should I try that? I don't even know if he's, you know what? I'm going to call him.
Well, have you finished the super chats at least?
No,
you do that.
No, that was Anthony Gonzalez. Yeah. No, there's a few more. Darth Plato and Stubble McShave. I have to get to Darth Plato. I'll go through all. Well, let me call him now. He might not answer. It might be too late because it would be funny if he did. I'm gonna call him. He's probably up. Let's see. Wait, I can't even. Where am I? Because he thinks it's funny when I call him and ask him these questions.
Who, Brian?
Yeah. So I'm calling him right now. Might not get him. We'll see.
Sorry, the person you are trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet. Please.
He's out of the country. He's still out of the country. Well, there you go. He's never set up his voicemail box ever. So there you go. Maybe he'll call me back. Here's Darth Plato. In the second episode of Obi-Wan, Leia says to Kenobi, "Where's the army?" What army? Didn't Leia say in Star Wars that Alderaan was a peaceful planet and had no weapons? Unless Leia met the Imperial Army? But I find that hard to accept. No way that Bail Organa would mention by name Kenobi, the boy, or Tatooine over transmitted channels. No way he would do that. Exactly the thing a dumb writer would do, though. Yeah, I mean, that was fingers on a chalkboard for me. I'm like, come on, you're part of the resistance, and you would never say that on an open channel ever. But he did. Darth Plato says, I haven't seen all of Strange New Worlds episodes, but this recent one is absurd. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Let's get out of this way. Sell by inciting a mutiny amongst our captors. Blank. This show. If it were that easy, the Barbary pilots would not have endured for 348 years. Yeah, basically,
Alpha 71.
This new episode of Strange New Worlds, Captain Pike is able to overcome pirates by cooking and being charming.
Who knew?
Who knew? You watch. That's what you do on Star Trek now. You just cook for people and you charm the pants out of them.
About the only thing missing was that it would have been even better if he was just wearing the apron.
Yeah. I mean, because they're space pirates and they're that easily ensorcelled. Darth Plato goes on to say, my experience in university is that critical thinking has been devalued in favor of postmodernist trends, such as teaching that the world is relative. It's all up to you. Also, free speech is devalued, both of which handicaps the give and take of rhetoric. I mean, look, I think it's weird that people want to squelch free speech. There's a weird idea, I think, amongst younger people now, and it's not just me, the old man yelling at clouds, that they want to make the world safe. The world should be safe. And let's make it a safe space. I'm like, since when? I mean, our sun can go supernova and we have no recourse. We'll just get burned away. We'll be burned to a cinder. Why do people think the world is supposed to be fair? Or that, I don't want to hear anything that affects me. Why do people think that? The world is a horrible place. People are horrible. Human beings have treated each other horribly for 10,000 years. I mean,
well, Robert, at these universities nowadays, whole philosophy departments are closing down because nobody wants to think about new ideas or address difficult, situations that, you would need collaborative minds or a think tank to solve. So they'd rather just be like the characters in the movie Don't Look Up.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I don't understand. I love thought experiments when you wrestle with difficult issues. You know, we were talking about racism, the issue of reparations, for instance. I find that an interesting issue. You know, and if you go back and you really look at, like, should we do that? And how do you do that? You know, but that's an interesting issue to debate and discuss. You know,
it is, and it's also every former Star Trek episode before 2009.
Right, that's exactly what. Yes, should we go back and discuss this? What I find so interesting is I love this new orthodoxy that the original series was somehow bad. It's sexist. It's cheap. Like like the original Star Trek was never cheap. It was one of the most expensive TV shows ever made at the time. But people are always going back and making fun of Star Trek. First of all, I want to go, well, it's interesting that you're going to go kick a 56-year-old man when he's down, because that's what you're doing. But
it's also a series, Robert and Lael, that looks it looks old, but at the time it was modern. It was a modern style kind of way of looking at space. So the ship looks old, the costumes look old, but at the time it was very chic, very cool looking.
Retro, not old, retro.
Well, I'm just going by what a normie might say. That gee, that doesn't look like something anybody would wear, but in the 1960s that was the style. It was very current. It was almost like the modern style of furniture, and the whole design was very modern and sleek for that time period.
No, it totally is. But Darth Plato, actually, about critical thinking, you know, it's such a weird thing that I always loved critical thinking. I loved having debates over fictitious, like for instance, how far does the Death Star is movable? It has a giant hyperdrive engine on one side of it. We don't really see in the geography. Like the Death Star can fly through hyperspace. Now we haven't seen it. We know it can because it can go from planet to planet. If it just moves slowly, it would take decades to go to any planet, but we know it can travel through hyperspace, even though we haven't seen it. But I know it can. Like, do I need a story that explains to me about the guy who built the hyperdrive for the Death Star? I don't. I mean, you can even see it on the readouts in Star Wars. You can see where the giant engine is, you know, in the back or whatever. We just never see it. And I think there's no, you know, to give somebody verisimilitude, to make people, you want to make people believe. That's what people want, is to believe. I don't believe Strange New Worlds. I don't believe anything. I don't believe the way the ship looks. I don't believe the way the sets look. I don't believe the way people's hair looks. You know, it's they had to have known Pike's haircut would become a bone of contention.
Well, there's a meme where his hair is super high.
Oh yeah, I where he's sitting in his wheelchair. I put that on my Instagram feed. I love that. Let's see. I think we are caught up. I think we're all caught up. Anthony Gonzalez. Yeah, I think we are. I think we are indeed caught up. Well, kids, it's been 2.5 hours.
Yes.
And for you guys, it's approaching 3 a.m.
Yes.
Almost 2:30. Yep.
Yes, 2:30. And I think that this has been another great show. We had another great conversation. It's great to have you all here.
Yes.
Let me ask the two of you. First, I'll start with you. What do you have going? What's going on with you on YouTube? Where can people find you?
Well, everybody, you can always find me on my YouTube channel, Positive Fandom, as well as on Twitch, because I stream on both simultaneously. On Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m., you can find me on my show on Positive Fandom called Sunday Brunch, where we do all the parlay in the fandom. On Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, you can find me on Toxic Femininity with Lorena Creole and Nina Infinity. Sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays, you can find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network, either on Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. You can also find me on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, streaming on Lorena Creole's Twitch channel on our show, Toxic Male Appreciation. On Fridays,
I didn't know that show. Wait, what? Tell me about this show, Toxic Male Appreciation.
Yes, Lorena and I have started a show. Yes, it is new. I think we're up to episode. 10. And the show is primarily, we formed the show because Lorena and I were tired of seeing men vilified for no good reason. And since we both love men, we felt for men to know that there are still women out there who appreciate you. We value you, especially with Father's Day coming up. You guys are important. We love you guys. We totally love you guys.
Wow, I'm gonna listen to that show for
and we felt it was important to point that out to the viewers and to the members because I felt like there was just way many kind of discounting the importance of male role in society. And so what we do every week is that we look at men who exhibit traditional masculine characters. We reject modernity and we embrace masculinity. And we look at different stars in the movies that we love and enjoy and talk about the traits like as a protector, as a guide, as a provider, everything that we associate traits that are masculine that we appreciate. So that is the show that we have on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on Lorena's Twitch channel. It's called Toxic Male Appreciation because we do appreciate you men out there.
Yeah, baby.
And yes, the show is very much like that. So check it out, guys. You'll see it on Lorena Creole's channel, also on Twitch as well, on her Twitch channel. On Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern, you can find me streaming on Midnight's Edge in the morning with Tom Connors and Andre as well. And you can always find me here on the PGS.
Wow, that's a great lineup. Well, Lael, can you beat that?
I don't know.
Yes, yes, you can.
Yeah. So again, great show. Love this show. Love being on. Love having these discussions because it is late and we can have these discussions and pretty much share it with the panel and the chat and get some insight from them. So I love having it. I love seeing the back and forth and how we can have opinions and still at the end of the day, love on each other and still have a good time. So of course we have today, we actually had, Figure Flex was a great show. It's every Friday at, 7 p.m. So tune in for that. On Sunday, of course, is
Collectors Lounge International.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I just like saying that.
Love it, man. Collectors Lounge International. We just, we there's a lot to talk about. What we did, it's never really scripted. We just kind of go off the top. And it's a great show. Love doing that. You can find me on Mondays on Comic Book Talk with Friends, where we just discuss everything in the comic world, whether it's the MCU, comic books themselves, animated, whatever. All comics, all about character development, all about character history, whether it's the history of Marvel, DC, you name it. We kind of go through it and have these discussions. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion about Miss Marvel. So stay tuned for that. We'll be kind of dissecting the latest episode. So I can't wait for that. Then, of course, Say What on Wednesday. Nice. We talk about everything in the Collectors universe and what goes on. There was a lot to talk about this past week, and then we got hit with bombarded by some new stuff. So it's going to be a lot to kind of catch up with. So stay tuned for that. That's every Wednesday around 9:15. Then also Uncivilized Scoundrels will be on my show next Thursday, where we be dissecting the latest episode. I think it was the last and final episode, the season finale of Obi-Wan. So that's always an interesting discussion. I have a couple of videos that are actually up and coming, and so excited, man. It's exciting times. Again, happy Father's Day to everybody for this Sunday, and I'll be also happy Juneteenth. It's going to be a great weekend. So
nice.
And Robert,
Kiki,
Tom Jr. Jackson, and I'm sorry, Tom Jr. Jackson says that someone says that you missed their super chat.
Oh no, it came in, and I'm just looking at these. Kiki writes in, Rob, this kind of chat I like. Let me read it in my night voice. Rob, you are anything but a gatekeeper. Your optimism and outlook on new movies or show news is always so refreshing. Wanting great stuff should be the norm. You've expanded my horizons tenfold in media. Kiki, that's the kind of chat I like. I just thought I'd give you a little extra zhuzh on that. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. You know, that's the thing. I normally am a pretty positive guy. The one place that I'm not that positive on is Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Discovery, and Picard. Because they're bad. That's why. And that's just an opinion, folks. I'm not saying you can't like them. I like lots of bad things. I freely admit it. The Stallone movie, The Specialist, with Sharon Stone, this is a god-awful film. I love it. I love The Specialist. You cannot tell me to not love The Specialist. I love it. However, I also understand it's bad. But don't take it away from me because I love it. Is that a dichotomy? Is that a strange thing to think or say or yes? It is. Can I defend my position? No, I can't. If you watch The Specialist, you'll think, oh, it looks good. It has a great music score. But there's a shower scene with Sharon Stone and Stallone where he's looking at his muscles more than he's looking at her. And I'm like, come on, man. What kind of movie is that? By the way, Kiki goes on to say, did my chat go through? Yes, it did, Kiki, and I want to thank you for supporting the channel. We have a super chat sticker from the Nightcrawler. Just a thank you.
Thank you, Nightcrawler.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We thank you, Nightcrawler. Thank you. I love that. I love that movie too. And there's a third-party 6-scale figure of Jake Gyllenhaal from that movie. So that could be cool or something. But we have reached the end of the show. Lael and have hipped you to where they will be. I'm here now. I keep saying this, but the Robservations is going to come back to 5 days a week. It's going to be at night at 8 o'clock at night, and sometimes it'll only go an hour, but it will be back, man. And also, Whining About Movies is coming back. So we haven't done it in almost a year, but for those of you who don't know, we did over 100 episodes. Elizabeth and I would do Whining About Movies, where we share a bottle of wine and we talk about a movie. We review a film, and we have a very eclectic. Sometimes we do really old movies and movies no one's ever heard of, or foreign films. But it was a lot of fun to do. And now that we're sort of more settled in here, and now with the Robservatory everything almost in place, like it's hard. It's been hard to take all the shelves in here. By the way, if you heard the surround sound system in this place, I mean, right now it's. Let me see. Let me figure out. I've got 5. It's a 7.1 Dolby Atmos system in here right now.
Wow.
It's going to be 11.1. The problem is it's severely overpowered. It's ridiculous. And when you want to hear the separation, it's pretty good in here. But wow, it is just redonkulous. It cracks me up. It's redonkulous. Yeah. It's like rhinoceros sound in here. It's crazy. But we will be doing it from here, and you'll be seeing more of the Robservatory shortly, because I'm gonna have more cameras and more stuff in here. The Maji cases, the figures. I got. You know what I got from Anthony? I got Mirror Spock, and I did get. I got classic Loki, the So Loki that came in.
So Loki's dope.
That's a great figure. I love Richard E. Grant. Got that, and I think. I mean. They said they shipped me Pennywise. I don't know. I got so many figures, so many things I bought on. Like, Toys Wonderland owes me like 8 figures that I've been paying off for the last year that I'm waiting to pay things off. Like, it's crazy.
Partially.
I think Miles is one of them. Is Miles?
Yeah. Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I've got the video game Miles. I'm getting the Bodega Cat Miles, and then the Miles Into the Spider-Verse Miles. So... yeah, but you'll see that. I mean, I could finally put the Maji cases. I got my drawers. I got the risers for my Maji cases, the drawer risers underneath, which is great because I can put all the accessories in there. Because you know what? Because I think Lael, I'm gonna do it. I have Hot Toys boxes everywhere. This is gonna seem crazy. I think I'm gonna start throwing my boxes away.
Are you really?
I think
even
so.
the art boxes.
Yeah. I think so.
Just sell them. Someone will buy them.
Yeah, maybe. But you know what I've done? They make for great decorative things. So like above my bookshelves, I've stacked my Hot Toys boxes. It's kind of cool, seeing them all, like the Spider boxes are all lined up. Like right over there, I'm looking at all my Spider-Man box. Like I can look and see I can see Scarlet Spider, a homemade suit Spider, a gold suit Spider, Mysterio. Like, it's all lined up. It's pretty cool.
I just can't get rid of my. I just can't do it.
I know I can't. I know, but it's like I'm never going to sell these figures. But then I should probably keep the boxes so, like, if I get hit by a bus, Elizabeth can then pack the figures up in their original boxes and sell them. So
Yeah,
you know. But anyway, and on that note, kids, I think we're done. I want to thank you both for being here. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel via super chats and tips. I want to thank the moderators. Darren J. Seeley was the first person here. Tom Jr. Jackson is here. By the way, you know what? I forgot a super chat, and I'm looking for it, and I don't. It was from. No, I said MCP Scotty. I did yours. Happy trolling.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, maybe I did say he was watching the original Star Wars. Somebody said we are all goof people, and I forget.
Yes,
who it was.
we are
Yes, we
all
are.
goof people.
It was.
yes, we are.
Yeah, we are goof people. So that was, of course, Tom
Good.
Jr. Jackson coined that phrase. So we're all goof people. So thank you for that, and thank you guys
Yes, yes.
for being great moderators and great people. And
Yes,
on
yes.
that note, kids, I would dismiss all of you. I would say every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that,
Listen.
I would say to everyone, have a better day. And that's gonna take us home, boys and girls.
They take us home.
We are out. So we're done. All right, kids, that was a good stream. Thanks for that.